6.4 kilometres until we get to the top. Time to bounce then. Jay Vine's made it, which is nice to see. Mikel Charel is from AG2R Citroën. I imagine he's probably got a little bit of company. Nelson Oliveira is part of the pack here, but it's too numerous, I think, this to be a great success. But nice to see Jonathan Lastra from Cairo Ral, but he looks like he's starting to struggle, and a few will be as well. This is with 104 to go. We've just dealt with 10.4%, and you can see, Dan, that it's that kind of incline.
You can, yeah, they're just going so much slower than the climbs that we saw over the weekend, aren't they, due to the gradients. Zeitz is there with his teammate from Team Bike Exchange, Mikel Nieves. So great to see him up there. We saw that crash in the opening week, which I think affected him in the second week of the race. Madrazo, one of the two Burgos riders there at the front, and still no concerted chase or any counter-attacks coming from behind. The gap now up to 55 seconds. If it gets much more, even the real pure climbers in this group are going to start thinking twice about whether or not they're going to jump across.
I think you're right. I think there's plenty of retrieval, as Bardet said, and I think that's what he's relying on, to be honest. Just looking at the King of the Mountains competition, which of course he is concerned about, I'm just seeing if Micah does make it, I don't think, was he part of it? I don't think he is he? He was just coming off the front, kind of thinking about it, third in that competition. And here we go, Burgos making a big noise again. I think they've got 2, possibly 3 within this group. I don't know. There's a lot of mountains points up for grabs today. I think 43 if you took all of them. So yeah, I mean it's worth the effort with Covadonga, a special climb at the end of the day, with special points up for grabs as well. 5.9 kilometres before we get to the top of this first of our big classic climbs today. Classified climbs, I should say. The Clomena, which is new to us, won't be by the second time of asking, because we could then say we've been here before. Still busy here. 35 seconds is the margin in early calls of that, but even within this breakaway, it's not settled down.
It hasn't, but I think this is, the following group, 36 seconds. This is David de la Cruz and Chris Hamilton there for Team DSM, trying to bridge across to that front group. Just to remind you that de la Cruz started the day in 14th on GC, but only at 7 minutes and 11 seconds. And it's the second time he tried to go up the road, and on the second time, it looks like the bunch have allowed him to do so. He'll be one of those riders looking to do the same thing as Guillaume Martin and Odd Christian Eiking, by leapfrogging up the general's classification by infiltrating a breakaway. So yeah, he's not too far behind them now. With his climbing capabilities, you'd have thought he'd get up to that front group, but like you've just said, Carlton, the front group is far from settled, is it? See Madrazo of BH Burgos looking to whittle it down further and create a group that might work a little bit more harmoniously together.
Yeah, try and make it a bit more selective, so that those out front are prepared to work together, because there's a few passengers inevitably within a group this size, Dan.
There always is. And it's a funny thing to say on a climb like this, but it's more of a, like I said, psychological thing sometimes, about having riders in front of you, or not wanting to do all of the work on the front, thinking that everyone else is getting some sort of advantage. There will be a slight advantage to sitting in the wheels, but on these gradients, not as much as, well, particularly on the flat, but even on the 5% gradients that we've seen at the weekend as well.
Could be very different if the wind was blowing, but we've got none today, Dan.
Very little, but still that threat of rain coming later, isn't there, at Lagos de Covadonga. There is a lot of rain around here. It's so contrasting to southern Spain, which is sunburnt in so many areas, isn't it? Quite barren. Here it's so verdant, and it was something I particularly noticed when we did go to film up the Angliru about just how green it is in northern Spain. I really like this part of the country, I've got to say.
Yeah, well, if you love your casseroles, this is where you come. And I do. 5.2 kilometres. Somebody yesterday sent me I saw the big rocks, and it was the goose anemones that I was trying to remember yesterday. One of the most expensive foods on the planet. I think it's €200 per kilo, and you don't eat them with anything. You basically boil them up and tuck in. But yes, thank you for that.
You only got yourself half a kilo's worth, did you?
Yeah. I used my winnings on after cashing in Yetzabol. Poor old Yetzer. I keep calling him to go for it, and indeed he was part of some of the pushes earlier on today. I do like watching him. He's been very, very lively, and we were talking, Dan, as we see another little breakdown here and a reach out. We were talking about those teams that put an awful lot into the days and get nothing out of it, and they help us remain entertained but yet get very little reward, and I hope that we offer them up some indeed succour, I guess you might say, for their efforts, because we appreciate it. Welcome back. Well, our breakaway, it seemed, was just too big to succeed, and Madrazo it was from Burgos, who pushed on, and he's got some company now. It is a filtering process. First time of asking up the Clomena climb on a big circuit of 41.7 kilometres in length before we come all the way back or complete the task of that loop. But Romain Bardet earlier on today said the problem is there's just too much space between the peaks today. I wonder if that might indeed be a design fault, because it looks, at least for now, that the pace we had, which incidentally was unsustainable at the beginning of the day, wasn't it, Dan? 51 kilometres covered in the first hour, including climbs. It was just too much, and I think we're seeing the wreckage of some of that right now.
Yeah, there'll be some legs that are seriously hurting already, with the vast majority of the climbing still to come, of course. Not sure actually if there are any groups off the back, small groups off the back of that main peloton, but if there are, then they're unlikely to get on this climb, despite the fact that they are allowing this gap to the front group to go up reasonably significantly. We can see it was Nathan van Hooijdonk on the front of the bunch for Team Jumbo-Visma, who's been climbing pretty well. I noticed him actually at the Clásica San Sebastian a couple of weeks before La Vuelta started, that he was doing a great job there for his teammates on some pretty tough climbs in the Basque Country. So he'll be doing the early pace setting, because although he is climbing well, he's one of the least capable climbers, being a big man of that team, but he'll just make sure he tries to protect them as far into the stage as he possibly can, to leave as many of the pure climbers from Jumbo-Visma around Primož Roglic later on. So yeah, still the split in the group up front. Dylan van Baarle determined to press on. I think although Madrazo had been on the attack a couple of times, it was in the end Van Baarle who'd gone up the road, and Madrazo just jumping across to them. But now that David de la Cruz has made his way across to this group, we're seeing that UAE Team Emirates are hitting the front with a man that you can't keep down. Matteo Trentin apparently is the guy on the front right now.
Yeah, his bid for a place in the Italian team for the World Championships goes on. 102 kilometres of the day remaining. It's been it's a long day, and also, of course, an extraordinarily peaky one as well. Just trying to remind myself how many altitude metres we get today. 4,437 is the answer.
You can find very different numbers on that. I noticed Velo Viewer tweeting earlier to say it was more, I think it was about 3,500 they had. So
well,
maybe a bit like the gradients on climbs that you were mentioning earlier, where they can be artificially high. Yeah. Hence flashes up the 14%. Oh, more action from the main peloton. Harm van Halke has decided that he wants a part of the action, and well, how much will they react? Jumbo-Visma just sending one rider to mark this move. The rest of them happy to continue with the same tempo, but it's not all over yet.
No, it's not. Diego Andres Camargo, by the way, is the EF Education rider who's up the front. Somebody who very rarely gets a mention, but is very much part of a busy engine room for EF Education, especially as they've lost 3 riders as well during this race. And so many teams are indeed hampered, but Camargo it is that's out in the front group of 4, which have a modest gap at the moment to the J. Vine Tratnik Lastra group that's chasing on. It's quality up front, and it's 1:54 back to the peloton, and if you've missed the day, then you may well miss the game as well, because with people like Harada up front, let's have a look, David de la Cruz, Trentin, who seems to be everywhere, Jay Vine and Tratnik are still trying to make a big noise. Jonathan Lastra of Cairo Ral's got 2 teammates with Capeda and Amasqueta. They're chasing on at the moment, but not much of a gap between themselves and those up front. Nice to see Dylan van Baarle. I hope he gets to light the candle, as it were, later on today. We shall see. But that looks like it's diminished just a little bit in front, or has it split itself? The quartet up towards the front, and here we are. It's Van Baarle and Camargo that go for it. Yeah, there are many unsung heroes within various teams. I think Camargo is one of those within EF Education. He's an ever-present helper.
But, well, since he joined the team at the start of this year, I guess, yes.
In this race, I mean.
Oh, I see it at the Vuelta. Yeah, he has been infiltrating a couple of different breakaways. Never seen him right at the forefront, at the crunch point of any stage so far, but I presume he was signed off the back of his great placing at the Tour of Colombia last year. The last time that race took place, of course, at the beginning of 2020. 11th on GC. I mean, that is about as competitive as a Grand Tour, the Tour Colombia, over the last couple of years, because obviously all of the top Colombian stars want to shine on home soil, so they all go in a great form, and the crowds are fantastic there as well, weren't they? But 11th on GC there for him as a young rider, 23 now, 22 21 he was actually. Still just shy of his 22nd birthday when he took that result, and I'm sure that we'll see more of him over the coming years. I was listening to, I can't remember where I listen to so many different cycling podcasts, I forget where I've heard each one, but Unquera, the manager of Movistar, talking about Enric Mas and saying that he thinks that although you get these superstars at a very young age these days, that doesn't mean that there aren't riders who can still burn a bit slower and gradually make improvements and find that the best parts of their careers come in their late 20s and early 30s, and he's convinced that Enric Mas is one of those. So although we haven't seen Camargo take a stage win here, what I'm trying to say is that he could well develop over the coming years as he learns the ropes in Europe and basically just gets stronger.
It's funny, isn't it? You think of Colombia and you think of climbers. You think of Colombia, you don't necessarily think of time trialists. Indeed, Camargo was runner-up in the Nationals there this year to Walter Vargas. It seems that they produce a special kind of rider, and today's terrain, you'd expect Colombians and Ecuadorians, if we had any left, to be part of it. The jet back to Ecuador has already left, Dan.
I think Sean was speaking to Kurt Bogarts, who he's worked with very closely for many, many years, that's now working for Ineos Grenadiers, and he said that he thinks that Carapaz has gone back to Spain for the time being, so maybe I mean, we already knew this, but maybe our theory was slightly flawed about his teammate and fellow countryman pulling out around the same point in the race.
Yeah, Caethebo it was for EF Education. Narvaez as well, teammate of course, Carapaz. I think we were a bit unkind, so this is our way of apologising.
Well, I was only joking at the time, but then when I did joke, it was what you were already thinking. Exactly. That was your genuine theory.
There was a third resonance. 3.1. We're just enjoying ourselves now. This race has got very much that feeling to it, hasn't it? It almost it gives you a last Grand Tour hug. Meanwhile, Trentin, he's got a bit of bangle-dangle here, which is going to carry all the way to the peak of this mountain. Category 1 test, 3 kilometres before we get to the top. It is actually still quite warm. It's around 27 Celsius today. So despite the fact that there's a great threat of rain, we've got a blanket of cloud, it's holding the heat in like a warm continental quilt. So yes, these guys could potentially still suffer from the heat today, bizarrely, despite what you might think by the look of the pictures. 100 kilometres just about of the day, a long stage down, the first big ask I think for the GC teams, and it may well be that we have to wait until the very last climb today, by the way it's shaping up at the moment, before we get any answers as to action.
Wow, here's a turn up for the books. Ineos Grenadiers are lighting it up behind, so this is Sivakov. And you can see by the expression on his face that he's not just going at a steady tempo up here, he is looking to ignite something. When we were speaking about the fact that Bernal is not going to be happy with 6th, 7th, 5th or even 3rd place at the Vuelta a España, he's a winner of 2 Grand Tours already, he wants to win another one, and he said he's been feeling better as this race has gone on, particularly last Saturday, in terms of responding to Roglic. He said he felt really good there and that the legs are coming round, but this bodes very well in terms of our excitement potential today, because they're not waiting for the final climb or even the penultimate one right now.
Well, this is great. I mean, just as the words are out of my mouth, they get slammed into the bucket and thrown overboard. Just look at this. This is fantastic. Bardet as well, very much in hunting mode. Just trying to see it. And Adam Yates moving up. That's always an indication. He's been hovering at the back for quite some time, and indeed now is moving back and into position. And it's having a big impact further down as well. It'll also have an impact on the breakaway, because this gap may well start to narrow. It's 1 minute and 20 as it stands, Dan, and you can see the clock now is working to the chasers.
It is, and I'm not surprised. Sivakov is a fantastic climber, one of the best junior and under 23 riders that we've seen in a long time. And although he hasn't quite taken that huge win in the pro ranks just yet, he certainly showed that he's more than capable of getting it at some point. So although he's working for somebody else, we know the fact that because he's such a quality rider, if he decides to go full threshold on the front for the rest of this climb, the gap will come down compared to Trentin, who is not a pure climber. So yeah, this is brilliant.
Well, thank heaven for that. 2.2 kilometres to go. We did wonder with all the big spaces and Bardet talking it down. But right now, legs are doing the talking. And it's Ineos Grenadiers that's setting the pace. 15 kilometres an hour. It's very different to our opener today, but the pace will get dramatically different once they get over the crest in 2.1 kilometres. What do they still have to deal with? They've just come over a nasty section. In fact, they're just going to come to the end of it. It's around 10%. It'll fall down to about 7.5. It then does pick up just before the top. In fact, I think we may well be just into that zone right now, around 9.6 to 10. In fact, we are. It does ease just a little bit, but not terribly much. And you can see from the quality of the roads here, not bad. I've seen an awful lot worse, but I've seen a lot better as well. And it will be a technical descent that takes us back down to the valleys, and then we'll come round and do all this again. And that's before we get to the Lagos de Covadonga. A great wearing, I think there may well be. And Landa decides that he wants to make a bit of a statement here today. Did see him just hoving on the back there of Ineos Grenadiers as they were making moves. There's a lot of pundits have been saying quietly that Landa's going to have a dig these next couple of days. Well, he's got his kinesio tape on at the moment. He got himself dressed in the morning and thought, I'm going to need this, and he is going for it. I'm liking this, Dan.
I am. I wasn't one of the pundits that expected to see much of him. I thought he might just head home, if I'm perfectly honest. So this also is great to see. And wow, didn't he come across to this following group very quickly indeed. Great to see. Not quite sure exactly what he thinks he's going to achieve as things stand, because Ineos Grenadiers riding on the front with a clear plan and the gap coming down pretty significantly. I guess maybe he's just hoping that he can make his way up to the front group before the descent and that Ineos Grenadiers run out of steam. But yeah, it bodes well for the rest of the race for him, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, he's not exactly a threat overall, because the days have gone against him. Let's be quite clear about that. Unfortunately, he's not been at his best, to say the very least. He sits 48 minutes down, so if you want somebody who, on this kind of terrain before the race started, you probably would have badged up as being of great potential. In fact, he was second tier, really, behind Primož Roglic, as many predictions before the race began, and then it fell away very, very quickly. Well, if he's refound his legs here, he could certainly go loud, and he won't be that much of a threat to those overall, but he could be a threat to anybody who wants to take today. I hope we're not overthinking it before he's even had a chance to prove himself, but it would be lovely. And the way he drifted over there, Dan, he looked like he got a lot in reserve.
Looked like the Landa that we all know and love, didn't it? The way he accelerated just there. Yeah, phenomenal acceleration that he just put in past Pavel Sivakov. Yeah, the gap we saw tumble down from sort of minute and 40, minute and 50 down to just under a minute and 20, I think it was, the last time we had the graphic up on our screen, courtesy of the work being done by Sivakov. This is the group following Harm van Alke. I haven't actually got the name of the rider from Intermarché, Wanty Gobert, but once again they're playing a bit of a blind, aren't they? Just trying to send riders up the road and make sure it's not just them that has to do the work behind. But to be honest, they haven't had to do too much work today, and I think that's normal. At this point in the race, it's up to Team Jumbo-Visma to take that red jersey back. The responsibility really is on their shoulders, even though they're in third place on GC. But still the same situation here in the main peloton, and it did catch Primož Roglic out ever so slightly. Once this tempo setting was started by Pavel Sivakov, there were immediately three Jumbo-Visma riders just behind Bernal, but it took a while before Roglic came up to the back of his teammates.
Oh, he's there. Mikel Landa, by the way, it's Simone Patilli is part of that Landa group for Wanty as it stands. There's Bardet, who diminished our expectations, and it's kicking off out front. It's Landa again. He says, see ya. I don't want to be part of this group. I want to be part of the group of 53 seconds or so ahead of me. This is great. Landa has found his legs. So the Eagle has taken off. The Eagle is Landa. He's with 98, just about a kilometre to go for those up ahead. Well, let's see how his descending head is on. We certainly know his climbing legs are back. This could be a fantastic day for him, and indeed for Bahrain victorious, who have one win with Damiano Caruso, but Landa's refound his legs, set a crucial part in this race. He may find time today. He's not going to find all 48 minutes or so, of which he is down. 48 minutes and 43, sorry, just double checking, making sure I wasn't misguiding you. And here we are. This is the Trentin group that finds itself out front, soon to be joined. I'll be bound by Mikkel Landa, who's doing it on his own. If you want a job done, do it yourself, and he is. He's going to join a significant group out front and add to the fighting force that it is. Mikkel Niemi is part of this group. Nico Dents, Aru is here as well. We haven't really gone through them all. Jay Vine, Jan Tratnik, Madrazo and Okamika of Burgos. 3 from Caja Rural, including Lastra, Amasqueta and Capeda. We have Jesus Herrada, nice to see him there. Camargo from EF. We have Biscara, who's made it over for Euskaltel. Dylan Van Baal, you've seen, great man to have posted out front for Ineos Grenadiers. We saw them starting to think about the alternative strategy where he may drop back and help out. We'll see. Good man to have up here. Monique for Lotto Soudal. Nieve is up here for Bike Exchange. Dents, great strong rider. From DSM, Fabio Aru, Claes and Enau, all from Quebec. So another trio there. David de la Cruz for UE and Matteo Trentin. Landa is pursuing, and he's found 20 seconds on them in very, very short order. Best placed out front is David de la Cruz at 7 minutes and 11. We're constantly mentioning him at that modest margin. Doesn't seem to be that much of a threat, but they better take care, because 7 minutes on a day like this, David de la Cruz, he's got some big options if he's found his legs as Landa has. Let us see. You never know, they might even work together. At the moment, Landa is working over everybody. That is a good push by him. He's now joined Tratnik, Madrazo, Okame and Dimitri Claes, having left behind Baumann, Madola, Patilli and Van Hoek. There's a lot of riders involved here, and a lot of options still. They've stripped out the distance to the top, because we're almost there. Nearly 2 hours of racing, about to crest it. And for the principals, as part of our King of the Mountains competition, no threats as they go up and over the top here, but somebody could light up a little bit of a challenge. So our descent is going to be fascinating as well, Dan. It's the first big one, and Landa is monster mood. This is fabulous.
Brilliant. Yeah, I was just about to say, he really needs to get onto the coattails of this front group before they crest the top of this climb, and he's just about managed it. He had to go very deep, unsurprisingly, really, with the size of the gap that it was when he went. What was it, about still been a minute and 20 seconds, I think, to the front group. Oh no, Odd Christian Eiking is already struggling. The red jersey from Intermarché Wanty-Gobert, who's ridden so well over the last week in that red jersey, is already struggling in the main peloton after the pace set by Pavel Sivakov. And if he's already struggling now, that could lead to huge chunks of losses by the end of today's stage.
Notable as well is that Guillaume Martin is not struggling as much, and he's the man with the damaged coccyx, and Landa absolutely breathless, just regathering himself here. He's gone over the crest, and now he can put something back in the legs, but this one, I'm afraid, looks like it might be at the back of the bus. Odd Christian Eiking, so strong. His team themselves said he can be exceptionally strong, exceptionally good on one day. He had a sequence of exceptionally good days. They did also say that he does have his own off days, and what a day to have that. Well, Guillaume Martin must be rubbing his hands together for Cofidis. Big door opening for them, but they've got to stay in touch with the pace today, which is infernal, Dan.
Non-stop attacking and excitement so far in this stage. So glad that we've had it from kilometre zero, as opposed to missing out on the opening attacks as we have done on most of the stage at this year's race. Yeah, it's sad to see in some ways, expected in others, maybe not in this climb, but one of the ones that came either on the rest of today's stage or indeed tomorrow's. But he'll look back on this very proud, as will his entire team. They've done, like I said, a brilliant job in defending that lead. He's done a brilliant job in defending it on the last climbs of the stages last week. But looks like it's his time done in that red jersey now.
Afraid so, but all credit to him, and chapeau. Is it 7 days for him? And it was 2 days as well, wasn't it, for Ryan Tara-May? So 9 in red for Intermarché Wanty. That's phenomenal. .52 seconds is the gap back to red at the moment. That's modest, and maybe Bardet is biding his time beautifully and has read this exceptionally well. Bed sheets are out. I don't know what Ponga. Well, I guess if you don't like climbing, it is a bit of a stinker today. Let's see. We are descending down, and as you can see, some mixed roads to deal with. Thankfully, they've pulled what little traffic there is to the side of the road. But this is one of those mixed descents. There's when you look at the graph of the day, the altimetry, it almost looks hairy at the end of this as we get down into the valleys, because there's an awful lot of little peaklets, and that tells you that we're following an old mountain trail down off this peak, which, to be honest, doesn't look like it's been paved for that long, which is why it's new to us. And the rain's coming down, which adds yet another nervous element to any descent.
Yeah, that's going to change the dynamic completely. I've got my fingers crossed ready for all the riders in the various groups, and particularly for those the group of Odd Christian hiking there who are chasing to try and make back time. That's always where the risks come, of course, because you're desperate to get back onto the coattails of the group you've been dropped from, so you're pushing the limits on every single corner, and there are a lot of them down this descent, which they'll of course do twice. Wow. I mean, I was very hopeful for a dramatic stage today, but I think even in my wildest dreams and hopes, I hadn't envisaged quite what we've seen so far. Hopefully it's not a damp squib of either variety in the latter half of this stage, at which we're just about coming towards the halfway point fairly shortly, aren't we? But it's been brilliant to see so many teams and riders being aggressive on this stage, and I'm really pleased to see Ineos Grenadiers take it to Jumbo-Visma at this point as well. You know, it's been a disappointing La Vuelta, let's face it, for them so far. They wouldn't have come here to get 6th, 7th, or whatever it is on GC, where they stand as things do stand right now. But yeah, Yates is just never there, is he?
No.
It's like he's in a different team to everybody else.
It's like he's got a free card to do what he wants, and that could be playing a game of frustration all on his own. As you look through the trees here, one of the things I'm worried about is the patchwork. Look at that, they've done a repair here. Now, if that's brand new, and I suspect it is just for this race, then this is dangerous, because if it's getting damp, it's very difficult to read your contact to the road down on a moment like this. We've got grippy stuff, we've got on-camber, we've got off-camber, we've got patchworks as well, some entire new stretches of brand new asphalt, some partially melted road by the looks of it, some gravel sections as well. You can't read it, and that makes life very, very difficult, especially when it gets wet.
It does, and well, I thought that might have been David de la Cruz there, but it's Matteo Trentin. But yeah, we heard from Nico Roach the other day that de la Cruz is not known as the world's best descender, far from it, in fact. So I'm not sure if Trentin's looking round to see where his teammate is, or what the problem is for the Italian just there.
No idea. I hope we haven't lost anybody already. Just going to welcome back everybody. Welcome back. We've got rain. We've also got very, very mixed, as you can see, patchwork here of different asphalts. The local community have obviously knew the Vuelta was coming, and they thought, you know what, we're going to repair some of these potholes. Unfortunately, we've got big stretches of brand new asphalt that's been laid, and when that gets wet, the oils are sweat out of it, and it gets very, very nasty. Couple that with the hairpins, the pace to chase back in, a breakaway that sets a margin and a determined chase as well. This could get a bit sketchy, and as a result, they're giving this descent an awful lot of respect, as you can see. I'm actually wondering whether Race Radio has declared that we've already had somebody come off. Because the way that everything has slowed down, you can understand the trepidation down with rain coming and all this mixed surface. It's not nice.
It's not nice, but they will be taking it more carefully potentially in this group than the one up front. I was speculating on during our commercial break just a few moments ago about what Matteo Trentin was doing. I think he found himself off the front on the descent with Michael Storer, who incidentally took the maximum points at the top of the climb just now, so 10 added to his tally, and he started the day on 24, so he's up to 34 now, which leaves Team DSM in a great position. Bardet on 51 now, then Michael Storer on 34, and behind that Damian Caruso on 33, Rafael Majka on 29 still, as he'd started the day with. So yeah, Michael Storer, well, he's looking good. If he can stay out front and take another 10 points, he'll be right up there towards his teammates' tally. Yeah,
exactly. And indeed, all the major points that he's taking are denied to anybody else as well in that competition. 92, I'm actually wondering whether they've declared the danger here as race organisers, sometimes you do get that. I'm not saying it's a neutralised descent just for the time being, but they will have offered up some warning. Well, I don't know whether some of you, before you went away, saw Odd Christian Eiking suffering before we got to the climb. Now, I'm not sure if that was before the breakdown, but worth mentioning that Odd Christian is struggling.
He is, yeah. He was distanced towards the top of this first category climb, and on his own, actually. It was notable that he didn't have any teammates around him at that point when he was distant, so not boding well for him. He's clearly not feeling particularly good today, and my opinion is that he'll probably lose more than 10 minutes given where he's already been distanced in this stage, which we're just over the halfway point of now. Is this the front of the race?
I think so, but frankly, you just never know. I think this is Ollie Lagac, but indeed, what I should have done is look at his number. Sometimes it seems that Steadicam is something that hasn't been invested in, or indeed not switched on by some, and so the numbers do bounce a bit. But I think it is Ollie Lagac that's off the front. But we shall see. It depends if descending is your thing. At the moment, no urgency, as you can see from this group that's chasing on just for the time being, and that's because the gap is it's a modest one. Let's put it that way. 1:25 just for the time being, and there's a big old reach along the valley bottom where that sort of gap can be indeed bridged, and especially if you happen to be somebody like Mikel Landa. What a superb bridge that was from a man who clearly is refinding himself, and we love that.
Yeah, it was quite the attack. He went very deep though, Landa, didn't he? But I'm sure he'll be able to recover from it, because it seems like finally he's found his legs at this year's La Vuelta.
I hope so. He's a lovely guy. I'd love him to get success. Why not a stage win today? There you go, I've said it. Eric Mas with Alberto Contador.
Llega la hora de la verdad. Llega el momento.
So, Henrik, we get the stages. Have your best opportunities. How do you see your strengths, and are you confident?
¿Qué crees? ¿Que la carrera se jugará en la última subida?
Last chance for everybody out there, including yourself.
Bueno, no sé, es mi punto de verlo. Yo creo que.
Well, we are just going to have to give it our best today.
La verdad que sí que es difícil. Bueno, se presta.
Extremely difficult. There's going to be a lot of pressure on absolutely everybody out there. And in my opinion, the team Ineos with Richard used to have Richard Carapaz. They've done a great race, but he's not here. Having much space between the climbs, a little bit difficult as well. You've got to be a little bit brave out there, I guess, and we'll all be playing the game before the finish. Very tough climb it is.
Una gran carrera, pero bueno, no lo tiene tampoco, pero yo creo que y también habiendo mucho espacio que entre un puerto y el otro.
Well, there could be some big spaces out there by the time we get to the end.
Y si no, se jugará todo al final.
Es que claro, dejarlo todo al final.
Of course, leave it for the finish and look towards Santiago de Compostela for the time trial. It'll be in Roglic's favour. And maybe you won't have enough space or to a safe distance, really. Also, tomorrow's a big opportunity. How much time do you think that Roglic can lose in a climb like Lagos de Covadonga and still remain confident when it comes to the time trial? Well, today, if you have a teammate at the front in the breakaway, you can try, but he needs to have good legs and to be at the front and have a lot of energy to take me to the bottom of the Lagos de Covadonga climb. And it's true that if you can break down Roglic's team, but that's a big if. I think that it depends if they set Kuss free in the climb, or indeed play the card of Steven Kruijswijk. So basically, the answer is a tough one. Well, there we are. Hope you have a good day, and hope you have your opportunities. Let's see, Miguel Angel Lopez, will he be there towards the end of the day? Quite possibly. And the way this is panning out, it's holding it 1.5 minutes at the moment. That's virtually nothing, Dan, considering the amount of racing we've done.
No, it's only, like you said, 90 seconds. It's not significant. Well, it's not huge, let's put it that way. But it has gone up since they started descending, because it was under the minute mark as they went over the top of that previous climb. Yeah, it does look like Legak managed to overtake Michael Storer, who had been at the front of the race and is now on his own at the head of today's stage. Other news is that Odd Christian Eiking has descended his way back into the main peloton, which I think tells you all you need to know about the pace at the head of that main peloton, still being led by Pavel Sivakov of the Ineos Grenadiers. Trentin's been doing a lot of work, of course, to try and get more time for De La Cruz, who's in this front group, and to remind you, the best place on GC by quite some margin, but he's managed to persuade all of the others to roll through and off as well. So I dare say this will be a waste of energy for Oliver Legak, because likelihood is he'll be caught by that big group behind him fairly shortly.
Which now includes, I believe, Jonas Aguirre, who made the trip as well. So on the descent, there we are, for Astana Premier Tech. So a few other options just starting to open up. There's a Movistar rider here as well. Did you see who it was, Dan?
I didn't, I have to say, no.
Let's have a look in a few moments' time. Minute 43, there's a bit of easement here. We're not doing any chasing for you, and the duty is expected to transfer to Jumbo-Visma. Talk about transfers. We've got Sean Kelly back in the commentary position. And indeed, I'm going to take myself a coffee break, Dan, but I will be close at hand and I'll see you a bit later.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't be long with how fast this stage is being ridden.
My breaks, honestly, they're all so slow.
Well, enjoy it anyway.
Thank you.
Albeit brief. What have you made of this, Sean? It's been fast and frantic from kilometre zero, about 100 kilometres through this stage now, and there's no sign of any let-up.
No, it's been a real difficult day, and not only the route today with these major climbs, steep gradients, but the racing has been hectic, and this is going to have an effect on some in the final time up to Lagos to Covadonga. And the race is, not over at all here. It's very much in the balance, and it looks like it's going to come down to the big favourites here, as we can see Jumbo-Visma starting to set the pace on the front, and 151 at the moment out of that breakaway. It's nothing in this sort of terrain, and we can see the one who caused the problems was David de la Cruz coming across there, and Trentin starting to ride. But I think we're going to see a big battle, and will we wait until the final climb? I'm doubtful. I think the next time up, this fourth category climb, again we will see Ineos trying to do something. We see Sivakov going down there. He's taking it very, very careful. We know Sivakov, his bike handling, he's had a lot of spills in the last 18 months, so he's not going to take any risk at all, and he doesn't want to risk Bernal or any of the other guys who he's working for Ineos Grenadiers. So this is going to be I think an exciting final, and for the stage victory, when that's up for grabs, it makes the race more nervous back in the main peloton, and it can kick off a bit earlier. Riders maybe who are out of the GC can try something, but the interesting one, Landa, is going across there. Not sure if it's a good move with the situation the way it is on the road, but yeah, if you're not up front, then you have no chance. But it's not going to be the opportunity for Landa to try something here today. But actually got a good enough legs to do it as well. I think today is a bit of a test maybe to see how he's feeling, and we might see more of him tomorrow when there's a better opportunity.
Well, we shall see. He certainly put quite an effort into that previous climb, and therefore overall on this stage already. How much energy has he got left for the finish? How much of a time gap will the breakaway have when they get towards the finish in the last climb as well? Well, in other news, and whilst we look on at Team Jumbo-Visma controlling things at the front, they have confirmed today that they've got a new recruit for next year. Long rumoured to be joining the team from Ineos Grenadiers was Rohan Dennis, who you can see here on the podium of the Olympics time trial a few weeks ago. And he will be with Jumbo-Visma, I believe, for the next 2 years. I think that's the duration of the contract. So pass is new for the Australian as of the start of next year, 2022.
And if there's a time trial in the Tour of France next year, team time trial, they're all of the one team there on that podium, of course, so it's going to be difficult for the other teams, because the power they have there with them three riders, if they can get it right and go to a big tour, what a force they would be in a team TT.
Yeah, it wouldn't bode too well for Nairo Quintana and Arkea Samsic, would it, if there was a team time trial in the race next year? I think it's for that reason, though, that Christian Prudhomme has steered clear of including a team time trial for, well, a lot of the past few editions of the race, in fact. It's been quite some time since we last saw one, and I can see why. It can make such a huge difference to the way the GC is ridden and create huge gaps between the best and the worst. You tended over the last few years to get a number of teams, maybe 4 or 5, who were all fairly close together, but some huge time gaps behind that. Well, the state of play at the moment is that we have one sole Frenchman up the road. It's on your screen right now, Olivier Legac of Groupama FDJ. Don't know exactly what his time gap is over the chasers behind. The last we had online on the live tracker is 30 seconds. Bit of a waste of energy, Sean, surely, when you're on your own in this valley road with so many riders chasing you behind?
Well, as you say, Dan, we don't know the advantage, but I was going to ask the question, what is he doing?
You ask that a lot, Sean, except for Magnus Cort Nielsen, who seems to know exactly what he's doing and very often get things right.
Well, I think, the Gak here is just riding himself, nowhere. Just, wait and see what happens. Just sit in the group here, eat well, drink well, and just follow. And if you can go like this on the descent, maybe he was on the limit already on the climb and just got to the top and decided, well, I'm just going to give it a shot here and just go down to the descent and ride here in the valley, and we come through the climb the next time, and then it might be day over. So, he's getting a bit of air time, of course, and with Groupama FDJ, my God, they need some airtime, because it's just been so disappointing for them, with in the sprints, and also for their GC man going out yesterday, which he might have a chance of doing something in the stages, but it's a big disappointing this race.
And not much time to make things better between now and the finish, particularly with the riders they've got left in the race. Geoffrey Bouchard, unfortunately, not in this breakaway today. He's really been their best climber, I would say, over the course of this Vuelta a España, as he was for them, of course, at the Giro d'Italia, where he took the King of the Mountains jersey. First Frenchman for a long, long time to take that jersey in that classification at the Italian Grand Tour. Yeah, I think, like you said, Sean, this rider, Olivier Legac, was just showing off his descending prowess before, and then couldn't just sit up because of pride at the other end of it. The gap that we had on our screens just a few moments ago, 28 seconds, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if he does sit up at some point and go back to the shelter of the group behind, because it is fairly large, at least 20 riders we've got in that chasing group. Interesting that the gap to the red jersey seems to have fallen. Not sure whether that's because they've upped the pace, Jumbo-Visma. I'd be surprised if they had, given that the best placed rider in that breakaway is De La Cruz at over 7 minutes. And there you can see odd Christian Eiking. Not only has he made his way back to this main peloton on the descent, he's made his way back towards the front of the group. But no, there is one other rider with him from his team, Intermarché Wanty Gobert. But we're not seeing the same numbers from that team, Sean, as we have on the hillier stages last week.
No, last week they rode excellent. Saturday and Sunday. Sunday stage, they were really impressive the way they rode in the front and had riders in the very end of the race after a very difficult day controlling. And the disappointing, I suppose, they're starting to pay maybe as well, because a team like that, they can do it for a time, but as the days go on, they just haven't got that talented riders who can ride on the front for 3-4 hours in a day and be there the following day and the day after and the day after. Those super domestique riders, these powerful ones, can climb as well, real strong. And that's what you're talking about, big budget teams. The riders who can do that, of course, are going to be attracted into the big teams with big budgets, where they will get a huge salary. And we know the teams will do that of recent. And for that reason, Intermarché Wanty are starting to pay the price for what they have been doing. But they've got the exposure. They've got a dream race so far. And whatever happens today, it's going to be an excellent race for Intermarché Wanty.
Certainly has been. Yeah, the big engines, as the riders you were referring to, and I guess Rohan Dennis is a prime example of that. Very big engine. We saw that first hand at the Giro d'Italia last year, of course, where he was leading over the Stelvio. Really instrumental in the eventual overall win of Theo Geoghegan Hart for the Ineos Grenadiers. From that point of view, it's quite a surprise that they wanted to see him go. But go he is at the end of this year, and of course he'll be joining up with his teammates before the end of 2021 for their first get-togethers. One of those strange situations in cycling where the season runs until mid-October, but the year and the contracts run until the end of December. So no doubt we'll see Rohan Dennis with a new bike but his old kit until the end of this year. If you've been away, welcome back. I speculated as to whether Olivier Legac might sit up and save some energy in that group behind, and the answer to that question was that he hasn't. Although he is glancing behind himself quite regularly. Interesting that Jumbo-Visma are pressing this hard to me, Sean. Surely they can't be too worried about the time gap to David de la Cruz?
No, I don't think they're going to be too concerned, but are they pushing really strong here? We can see Van Hooydonk there on the front, but they're taking control here, and it's difficult to know how much or how hard they're riding. And Jumbo-Visma, the last number of days we talked about Intermarché, Wanty, like they have been great help to the team of Primož Roglic, because they've been controlling the race and taking the pressure off, and I think they have a lot of power left here. We can see the way they're riding on the front. I think they have a lot more to give here, and just ride on the front when it's really going slow. Just keep the thing stretched out a bit, because if you knock it off totally, well then the riders start coming up, it gets very grouped together, and maybe they're concerned about the dangers of crashes. And Talking about danger here with the wet roads now, for the next time on the descent is going to be not an easy one, and a dangerous one. Nasty. Yes. Well, we're going to hear from Jack Haig fairly shortly, the Australian that's right up there on GC for Bahrain victorious. But I know there are a lot of you who are interested in finding out how far things are spread out on the road on a day like today. And for fans of Fabio Jakobsen and the green jersey, last time gap we had on the group that he is within wasn't that big, 4 minutes and 50 seconds, and that is to the front of the race, I believe. So it's only 3.5 minutes behind the main peloton containing Primož Roglic and all of the other GC contenders. Talking of contenders, let's hear from Jack Haig now and see what he had to say this morning.
It's always good to get asked by the riders how I'm feeling. I'm good, but Jack, there's a big mountain stage in front of you, so excited about today?
Very much. I was happy to get yesterday's stage done with and move on to the mountain stages now. Yesterday can be tricky with the crash like we saw, and a lot of uncontrollable things can happen, whereas once we get to the mountains now, it's more controllable, and you have the legs or you don't have the legs.
Your team looks like it. They definitely have, all of you have good legs. What are you planning for today? Would you share some secrets?
No, of course. I think both today and in the coming days, we're looking for opportunities. If an opportunity arises, we'll definitely take it and try to race aggressively. But we're also not going to race silly. So, and I also do not want to finish the Vuelta in 6th or 7th or 8th and not have tried something to arrive on the podium. It's quite a rare chance, I think, and I want to try and every opportunity I can to get there.
We also have heard this from other
captains.
No, more like saying, there's more teams that will try something, not jeopardizing things, but also having alliances with other teams. You think it could happen?
I think so, for sure. Everyone knows Primož has such a strong time trial, and at the moment he is almost the 99% favourite to win this race because of that time trial that he has. So if Movistar and Enric and Lopez want to win this Vuelta, they have to race aggressively. And then in my case as well, we have Odd Christian Eiking and Gavin Martin, who are first and second. But it's quite a big time gap to myself in 6th place now, and definitely the guys in 7th and 8th, if they are still looking for a top 5 or the podium, we need to distance them by racing aggressive.
Then it's going to be definitely exciting for us to watch. Good luck.
I hope so. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Always good to hear from Jack Haig. Always very honest answers that come from him in our pre- and post-race interviews. You might have noticed on the main body of the screen just a few moments ago that the lead commissaire car had stopped on the side of the road in a far from ideal position. Arm waving from Mikel Nieve amongst other riders who just about managed to avoid it. And a lot of cars going there past the leading breakaway, Sean. I think this gap is tumbling down between the breakaway behind Olivier Legac and this main group, who do seem to be pressing on as the heavens open.
Yes, and listen to Jack Haig there, talking about safety yesterday, a day where you'd be concerned with crashes, and it's turning out to be a day where it's not going to be very safe with the wet roads here now as we go down this little bit of a descent, and the next time up the climb, there's a lot of descending here, and if a team try and push on with the position Jack Haig is in, he's up there in 6th place in GC. You have to try and stay up there, and that's where the risks come into it. So today, you would be expecting a dry day, but unfortunately, the weather turns here and not looking nice at all at the moment.
It's not. I've seen some grippy roads in my time, and this is not one of them. It looks very slippery indeed out there on the road surface that they're dealing with right now. And it looks like the main body of the peloton, the red jersey group, is about to catch the breakaway containing David de la Cruz amongst many other riders. He's the best placed on GC there. Olivier Legac still out front. And I've been talking a lot about the Movistar duo and the Ineos Grenadiers plans for today and trying to take some time back on Primož Roglic. The way I'm looking at things now, it looks as though Roglic and his team are determined to turn the screw themselves today, and far from losing time on others, actually really put the hammer down himself and assert his authority on this race. Of course they will be aware that Odd Christian Eiking was already dropped on the previous climb, so I don't think that's anything they're going to be worried about. But at the same time, the way they're riding right now, to me, signifies that they want to take time on anybody else that's currently quite close to Roglic on the GC. Interesting stuff, Sean.
Yes, well, I think they're taking control, just to be safe, first of all, and on this point of the race, it's easy to be in control with a team like Jumbo-Visma, and what they've been doing the last number of days. All of that will count, but certainly it looks like they have intent here and keep the pace. And when you say they're catching the breakaway here, that means that they are pushing on, so it's always difficult to see how much they're pushing, but the time will tell. And when they pull back that big breakaway we were talking about, well, then that tells that they're going at quite a strong pace. And it's all to be done yet, unfortunately, for everybody here. And the next time up the climb, will we see action from some of the men down in the GC standings? Will we see Bernal maybe trying to push on Ineos Grenadiers? We did see already, they did the last time up the climb push on the pace a bit. It looks like that they could anything could happen here the next time up this climb.
Wow, look at there's gaps everywhere, groups all over the road as things stand, and even with that first category climb, they've averaged 45 kilometres per hour. Wow.
Can't be right.
Seems unlikely, doesn't it, with the amount of ascending that we've already done?
Yes.
If anyone's got the calculators out and the stopwatches going, let us know if that was right or wrong. I think I'm in agreement with Sean now. I'd be very surprised if we'd average close to 30 miles per hour with 115 kilometres or thereabouts already covered in today's stage. Whatever the average speed, though, it's certainly been a very interesting and entertaining one to commentate on so far. Situation as things stand, Legac out front with only the neutral service vehicle for company behind him, because the gap is less than a minute back to the main peloton. Jumbo-Visma have caught the rest of the breakaway, which didn't go until about 70 kilometres into today's stage. Seems to be a theme of this year's Vuelta a España. I noticed a few moments ago at the back of the main peloton, there was one man clearly suffering. Jan Palance, who'd been in part of pretty much every breakaway move at the early part of today's stage. He is still in this group, but only just. And as I said, the group seem to be splitting apart quite significantly.
And we did see Palance in the earlier part, as you said, and the way he was riding, it looked like that we were in the final 30 kilometres of the race.
Were you asking yourself, what is he doing?
and the third category climb, we see the way he made the sprint to the top against Bardet and Caruso, and then he just went off on his own, was riding out in front there, and just giving it his all, hanging out in front with a 10 or 15 second advantage in front of a group of riders was off the front of the peloton. These director sport teams, you would expect them to say, hey, knock it off there. There's a group behind you, just sit up and get into that and ride with them and wait and see what will happen. But, now he seems to be on the rear end instead on the front end, which he was in the very early part of the day.
As things stand, it looks as though the stage winner is going to come from the main group of GC favourites as opposed to from a breakaway. Don't want to do a disservice to Olivier Legac, but he's not going to hold on to a 48-second advantage from now until the finish. And it won't be too long now before they'll take on the second ascent of the climb that we've just watched. It starts again after 122 kilometres covered, so 64 kilometres of the stage remaining is where we'll see them start climbing again, which is only 7 kilometres away from where we are right now. Wow, that looks like a stunning walk, but not one where you want to deviate away from the path too much.
Yes, I was just going to say, Dan, that's not the road we're going up. Beautiful.
I'm sure they've thought about it, knowing modern race day organisers. Well, it's a display of dominance at the moment by Team Jumbo-Visma, who look to have every single rider up front here still around Primož Roglic. Nathan van Hooijdonk, he was gapped by the main peloton when we saw that surge by Pavel Sivakov. He'd already been riding on the front, and of course he is a big rider, and he was suffering there, but he chased on down the descents and the other side of that climb, and he'll be doing the bulk of the work out front because he knows that he won't be up there probably towards the next climb, top of the next climb. Gap is now 45 seconds, so it's holding fairly steady. I think they're setting just a fairly even tempo, Jumbo-Visma, behind this man at the moment. They've got full control of this race, but they'll want to lead it into this next climb, and the way things are right now, it looks like they want to stamp their authority not just on these flatter valley roads but also on the next climb itself. But even if they do want to increase the time gap, Sean, you can't imagine that they're going to set Primož Roglic up the road on the penultimate climb of the day. This looks like they want to control it from here to the foot of Lagos de Covadonga.
Yes, just you know, make a pace now on this second time up this fourth category climb, and then, you know, get it to the final. But will they be allowed to do that? That is the question now. What is the tactic from the other men further down in the GC standings? And on Lagos de Covadonga, you know, will Primož Roglic be the strongest? He's shown the signs of it with the team on the front, but sometimes you see that the team take it up and then suddenly, you know, their main GC contender has a little bit of difficulty, and that will depend on what the others can put up against him. You know, Movistar, will they be able to really push it on? Ineos Grenadiers, you know, Jack Haig, what will he be able to do? There's so many things that can, you know, be put into action in the final. And will that be on the final climb of Lagos, or will it be on this penultimate climb of the day?
Well, I'm hearing that you're not hearing us very well, so there's not really much point in me apologising at the moment for the fact that there seems to be some sort of Italian sports broadcast going over the voices of myself and Sean Kelly, but once that's resolved I will apologise again. We'll try and sort that out as soon as we possibly can. I'm sure it won't take away anything from your enjoyment of the actual race itself. Probably Carlton messing with buttons, taking away my moment of glory as he has his rest. Yeah, just a few kilometres now before we'll hit those steep slopes yet again, so I'll remind you all of the gradients and the distance that they're covering on this climb, which they're doing twice today. La Collada Yomena, 7.6 k's long, 9.3% the average gradient. So although it's not the lengthiest climb in the world, it's steep. And we saw that Mikel Landa used that to his advantage. And Sean was very right, as he often is, that was a bit of a waste of energy by Mikel Landa, because he's now back in the fold in this peloton. Will he have enough energy to go again? Seems unlikely, given how much he put into the previous ascent. Might well have been, Sean, that they were just trying to look to get another rider up the road to potentially help Jack Haig later on in this race.
Yes, it's another possibility. You know, there's so many different tactics within different teams that they try, and yeah, with Landa, of course, yeah, you just never know what's going to happen out front with the way they were pushing on. It looked like it could be a good break, but unfortunately, yeah, they didn't seem to keep on pushing that pace.
I understand that the Italian broadcasting pair that were over the top of the voice of myself and Sean Kelly are now gone. So apologies for those of you who were hearing two sets of commentary in different languages at the same time. Hopefully that's sorted now, and hopefully we can just enjoy the rest of today's stage. It is stage 17 of La Vuelta, the 5th from last stage, and part of two mountain stages back to back, the two hardest stages in fact of this year's race. 4 climbs on each. We've had our third category today, we've had the first of our first categories. We're about to go up the same climb again in just a couple of kilometres time, and then we finish up an Especial category climb, Lagos de Covadonga. Tomorrow, more of the same. Pair of first cats, a second cat just before the finish, which is on a brand new climb, the Alto del Gamoniteru, which we understand is the brother of the Angliru, not too far away from that notoriously steep climb, and almost as steep. Well, I mean, the rain really is coming down at the moment, Sean. Look at the spray off the riders' wheels.
Yes, it is, not nice out there at all at the moment, and yeah, it's going to be a concerning times with the wet roads, and first time in this race we have seen the rain for the riders. We have excellent conditions. A lot of the days there it was just too uncomfortable, too hot for bike racing, but yeah, they prefer, I think, the warm weather than having this condition. And you're always concerned when you get into this point in the race, if you're up there in the GC, you're challenged to win the race. It's the risk percentage here trying to get down off of the this mountain, it's very, very high, and you're concerned as well a rider getting it wrong and you have to maybe brake a bit heavily, and then you can slide out, where in the dry conditions you feel much more confident and much safe going down, even though you go maybe twice the speed on the descent. Dry conditions are a lot more you feel a lot more safe, and you feel more confident, certainly.
And you do see very varying degrees of confidence on wet descents from the various riders that make up a peloton. Some just far more comfortable than others. I myself suffered a lot down descents when they were wet. Strangely, I felt like I was one of the better descenders when it was dry, but as soon as the roads were wet, I seemed to lose my confidence and could just feel my wheels slipping out from underneath me. And on the road, of course, if you feel a slip, you're likely to hit the deck. Not quite the same when you're off-road racing on mountain bikes or cyclocross, because you can drift slightly and know that the wheel will dig in and the tyre will dig in again, and you'll get some grip. Once you start sliding on the road, it's pretty soon that your own body is sliding as opposed to just the tyres underneath you. A great job being done by Team Jumbo-Visma yet again today, and it is all for the man that's won this race twice before, Primož Roglic. Let's hear from him now.
So Primož is joining us today. This is a big day coming up. What about this day, Primož? What are you feeling?
Yeah, we were actually waiting for this 3 weeks almost. So yes, the mountains are here, and
he is strong. He is strong.
Try to do the best.
What will be the best? When will you be happy after this day? I mean, are you guys attacking, or you ride defensively at first?
Yeah, we will have to see what will be the rhythm of the race, how it will go from the very start, actually, how it will go on the climbs before towards the last climb. So for sure you want to have the legs, be good to attack and gain whatever, but hopefully we feel good, we are strong, and we do our best.
On the circuit of today, Alberto Contador said that might be the key in the descent, not the ascent of the second and third climb. What could you say about that? Because it's a dangerous descent, he says.
Yeah, for sure also. You know what I mean. First of all, yes, you have to come up, but then also you need to come down the climb. So for sure we need to stay focused.
What could you tell us about the Lagos de Covadonga?
Don't know it. Watch some replays. So looks nice and super hard.
Super hard. I tell you what, the biggest story to come out of this year's Vuelta a España for me is the budding bromance between Enric Mas and Primož Roglic. Is Roglic just using him though, Sean? Because obviously he wants to be friends with the person that's just behind him and hope that he doesn't take advantage of him.
Well, you always try and be friends, but in the end...
Do you? I don't believe you were always friends with your rivals.
Well, when you're off the bike, as we see there with Roglic and Enric Mas, but when you're on the bike, they're big enemies, and they don't really think about what you were talking about before you go out on the stage or after the stage, for that matter. They go out there and they just give you a hardest time as possible. If they see you're under pressure, they see there's a little bit of a crack, well, they will hit you, immediately, and that's what it's, that's what bike racing is about, and you know that. And if you can't be friends with the guys who are, maybe behind you, you just try and do that. But on the road, it doesn't exist.
A reminder there of the predictions from our experts today. Anna Walker going for Enric Mas, who we've just been speaking about, as has Alberto Contador. Brian Home going for Primoz Roglic, and David Moncoutier going for the Frenchman Romain Bardet to take the stage victory. All in with a shout, given the way things are right now on the road. A 53-second gap to a lone SVP, who's on your screen right now. He's about to start climbing again. It's 7.6 kilometres, an average gradient of just shy of 10% that they're dealing with for a second time. Predictions from the experts there, but we've been asking you to vote over on the GCN app as well, and it is a resounding amount of support for Primoz Roglic to win today's stage. Next best, Egan Bernal with 14% of your vote. And given how much control they are taking over this race right now, Roglic looks determined to try and win today's stage and really stamp his authority on the overall race. Hoping to deny him will be Enric Mas, and it won't just be him hoping for a stage win or just his team Movistar. The entire country of Spain will be hoping that Enric Mas can get them off the board at this race, because they're yet to win a stage of their home Grand Tour. Last time that happened was all the way back in 1996, where they didn't manage to take a single stage of the Vuelta. That year, I was looking back on Pro Cycling Stats, there were 50 Spaniards that started the race, whilst there were 57 Italian riders in the race that year, who between them won half of the 22 stages that we had in 1996. Not only have Spaniards not won a stage of La Vuelta, they have failed to take a single stage of any Grand Tour so far this year, and according to cycling historians, a few of them have been tweeting about it, that has never before happened when all three Grand Tours have taken place on the same year. So there hasn't been too much Spanish success in the Grand Tours this year, Sean, which has been unheard of since day dot. Anything to worry about, do you think?
Well, it is a worry when you look at where we are in this race. We're getting close to the end of their home tour, and to get a one, it's looking not great times for them, unless Enric Mas can put up a performance here today. Otherwise, in the GC standings, I don't think who else could you look at. You have to go a long ways down, and it is definitely a concern. I think the Spanish press will be asking that question now already for a number of days. And today is the day we will see if they can do it, because for Mas it's certainly an opportunity. He's in a position in the overall standings where he has to try and test Roglic and see can he crack him, see can he break him. And by doing that, well, you're going for the stage victory, but you're also thinking big time for the GC standings. And with the end of this race being a time trial, you have to take some time back if you're going to have any chance. And even at that, he'd need to take quite an advantage going into that final time trial. But if he does part of the way today and put Roglic under pressure, well then it will give him the confidence going into tomorrow. But will that happen? The wet conditions now could change the situation, because some riders in the real warm conditions they ride so well, but when you're out in the rain for 2 hours, it can affect you. When you're not in the rain for all of this race, and then suddenly yourself, Dan, it can start giving you the heavy legs in the end.
It can. And it can also give you heavy legs when the Ineos Grenadiers start pacing at the front, and they're at it again. While Sean was speaking there, we saw Pavel Sivakov come back to the front, as he did on the last time we came up this climb. This time he's got company, though, in the form of Tom Pidcock. Most of you will know that he's riding his first Grand Tour. He made his debut in the World Tour for Team Ineos Grenadiers this year, and he's starting to come good now. He's been saying in interviews that he's felt better and better as this race has gone on. He took a bit of a break after winning that Olympic gold in the mountain bike event over in Tokyo, so came here slightly under par. But this bodes very well not only for the team within this race and for the remaining stages, but also for Tom Pidcock for the upcoming World Championships, at which I would assume he will be team leader for Team GB, potentially with Ethan Hayter there as well. So Tom Pidcock and Pavel Sivakov on the front, Haig and Bernal on their wheels. Once again, Adam Yates choosing to just ride a bit further back in this group here. In fact, I'm trying to see exactly where the other British rider from the Ineos Grenadiers is. That spelt the end for the time on the front, unsurprisingly, for Nathan Van Hooydonk. Primož Roglic still surrounded by teammates. You see Stephen Kruijswijk up there, Sepkus, sorry Sean.
Yes, there you can see Yates there just back in about 12th position, you know, just sitting there and waiting. And with Pidcock on the front, hopefully he's not on the front for the descent down of this climb, because if he does, he could cause problems for a lot of riders.
Sivakov, he could cause problems, certainly.
Try to follow him, but I think Pidcock is going to ride now and just empty the tank, and then we will see, you know, the other riders taking the job of the pace setting.
They clearly want a hard race in Ineos Grenadiers today. So too, though, do Jumbo-Visma. I mean, they could definitely have let that breakaway eke out a much bigger advantage, 4, 5, 6 minutes, without it being of too much consequence, because they know that the gap would have come down on the final climb to the finish. But they kept the pressure on. They caught the early breakaway. And I think Olivier Legac has now been caught. We're starting to see the effects on some of the other riders within the bunch. Movistar with one rider short now to surround Miguel Angel Lopez and Enric Mas. And I guess part of this, Sean, is that because we're later on into the stage, these riders are more confident they can sit up and go at a steadier tempo and still be within the time limit. Last time up this very climb, there would have been a lot of desperate people trying to stay in contact with the main body of the peloton.
Yes, well, I think a lot of them know now at this point, with just over 60 kilometres to go. If you haven't a job to do, you know, you just haven't got that motivation to hang on in here. You just look around, and when there are other riders maybe in more difficulty than yourself, you just stay around them and you get into that group and get to the finish today. And we're seeing a lot of riders starting to suffer, but yeah, some are trying here to stay in, but the pace being pushed on here by Ineos at this point in the race, what we've been doing all day, you know, full on racing, I think the legs are screaming at some of those riders.
Tom Pidcock has done his turn, and that leaves Pavel Sivakov to do what he can to help his teammates. Not sure where Dylan van Baarle is right now. Of course, he was up the road in that breakaway. Didn't put too much into it, but it might just have sat the legs enough to see him not able to contribute on this penultimate climb of the day. There is Van Hooydonk. He's been riding incredibly well, that man. You can see how big he is compared to some of the other riders around him that are currently being dropped. Carrying far more weight up these steep gradients, so he's done a sterling job throughout the whole race, but particularly today's impressed me. And the group's getting smaller and smaller, and the red jersey's been dropped. Apologies, I didn't see him just up the road in this same group. We saw him dropped on the previous climb, all by his lonesome. He got back on descent, but today not a good day for Odd Christian Eiking. But nothing to be ashamed about. He's had 7 very good days in a row, should I say. The Norwegian from Intermarché Wanty-Gobert. He will relinquish that red jersey today, Sean.
Yes, I think we just see that, the last time up this time, he was in difficulty as well. And when you see that, yeah, it's pretty much sure that he's going to be in difficulty again if it's pushed on. If they for some reason just ride a steadier climb and everybody waiting, watching each other and go on to the final climb, you know, then he might have been able to hang on in here. But with this pace being pushed on, first of all by the team of Primož Roglic, now by Ineos, it's catching and hurting a lot of riders here. And you can see, you know, the scatter of riders on the mountain here. They're all just getting blown out, and the group of the Primož Roglic and the rest of the favourites just getting smaller and smaller.
I noticed exactly the same thing myself. It's already very small. 25, maybe 30 riders left in that front group. And the red jersey, not one of them. You saw the gap just a few moments ago, 23 seconds, and that will continue to rise over the remainder of this climb. 5 kilometres of it to go. So not even halfway up the second ascent of the same climb. I'm not expecting to see an attack from Haig and Bernal despite this pace setting here, Sean, because we've talked at length about the length of Valley Road between the foot of the descent off this climb and the start of the Lagos de Covadonga. I can only imagine that they're looking to just make things hard today and hope that Bernal's legs have come good and he can make the difference on the final climb to the finish.
Yes, but if Bernal try and push on, and we know Bernal in the horrible weather conditions, we see him the Giro, he supports that very well. If he pushes on here and he goes out with a number of the guys in the GC standings, if you pull Enric Mas, Lopez, if Yates go with him, and maybe of course Roglic, but maybe Seb Kuss, and then you get into that valley there and it gets a bit messy, and it's Roglic has to kind of control it with his teammate. But that is a long shot, and by doing that, well then, you might use up all your energy before you get to the final climb. But there's always possibilities that you could go for a long one. But the way Sivakov is riding here, he is thinking they just keep the pressure on, keep the Jumbo-Visma guys under pressure. And he's doing damage because we see, there are less riders here now for Jumbo-Visma. We see Kuss there, we can see, I think Sam Oman is there, or Kreiswig is there.
Oh, he's going. Bernal's going on the attack. Wow, so I was completely wrong, and I'm very pleased about that. Haig Bernal is not leaving things to the Lagos de Covadonga today. He wants to make things hard from the penultimate climb of the day, but glued to his wheel, as you would expect, Primož Roglic. Is he on a good day today? It certainly looks like it at the moment, but he and his teammate Sepp Kuss are the only riders who've currently managed to follow Haig Bernal, and as I say that, Sepp Kuss has been distanced as well. And I see no reason for him to do that, except for that his legs weren't able to allow him to keep up with the leading duo of riders. This is a big move, Sean, from a long, long way out. Over 60 k's to go.
Yes, it is a big move, and it tells us that Bernal has to be feeling good. And we're hearing that he was feeling better as this race go on, and now he has Roglic just on toe here. He's going to follow and mark him, and what Bernal needed was he needed more riders to come with him here, the guys in the GC standings, as I was saying. But with this attack, nobody, only Roglic is the one is going to follow here. So if they continue on, we're still over 4 kilometres to the top. It's going to be a problem here for Bernal, because if he rides in the valley with Primož Roglic in the wheel, well then you're going to burn up a lot of energy before you get to the final climb. So we'll have to see what happens in the next number of kilometres to see will there somebody be also able to come across out of the rest of the favourites group.
Wow. I'm just wondering whether this is a little bit of a risk by Primož Roglic really to follow this move. Yes, he doesn't have to do any work and he won't have to do it in the valley, but the way Bernal's going, he surely must have burnt a match going with him. Well, we hoped it would kick off on today's stage of La Vuelta a España, and it certainly has, from start to where we are at the moment with 60 kilometres to go. You see the gap from the front of the race to the red jersey is 50 seconds, but that at the moment is not really the gap that we're interested in. What is the gap between Bernal, Roglic and the rest of the group of favourites here behind, and how many riders does the likes of Jack Haig have around him? Because the problem Movistar are going to have, Sean, is that it's likely to only be Enric Mas, maybe only Enric Mas, actually looking at the composition of this group. I can't currently see Miguel Angel Lopez.
I think he's up ahead. We see him just in the previous shot there, and coming around the bend behind Bernal.
Yes.
We could see Lopez on his way up.
Oh, this is fantastic. I wonder whether what Haig Bernal needed was some rain, and I'm only half joking. Thinking back to the days where he really put time between himself and the others back at the Giro d'Italia, they were stinking conditions. So stinking, in fact, that we didn't really get to see that stage win, or much of it, because we didn't have any TV footage because of all the rain and snow that particular day. Maybe Sean, he'd been suffering in the heat in the opening 2 weeks of this Vuelta, and he's relishing these slightly cooler and wetter conditions.
Yes, and you wouldn't think so, because being a Colombian, you'd expect him to be able to support the real warm conditions. But yes, there is riders, who come from countries where you would expect it to be very, very warm, but altitude as well. A lot of maybe where Bernal come from, a lot of bad conditions, and certainly it's an interesting one, because in the Giro he was excellent in these horrible conditions many times during the race.
Guillaume Martin starting to suffer as well here for Team Cofidis. He's the man, of course, that started the day in second on GC and had big aspirations of trying to go into the red jersey over the last week of this race. He took a big dent yesterday, almost quite literally, when he took a hit and had a crash at the start of yesterday's stage. Nothing broken, so obviously he still managed to continue on in this race, but you don't know how much that has been affecting him throughout. Seeing some gaps now. So the gap from the two riders on your screen right now to the group that we've just been watching is 32 seconds, and somewhere in between, we might just see him on the right hand side of our shot just then, should be Miguel Angel Lopez. I didn't actually see him go on the attack, but Sean Kelly had his beady eye on it and knew that the Colombian was somewhere between this duo and the rest of the favourites. 3.4 Ks until we get to the top. Just to remind you of the gradients that they're dealing with on this climb, in case you've only just joined us. It is steep. If you look over the last 3 kilometres, the third from last is 7.6% average. The second from last ramps up to 9.6 average, and then up towards the top for the last 1,000 metres they're onto an 8.4% average gradient. So 3.3 Ks to go. That will still take them a reasonable amount of time, at least a quarter of an hour more climbing, I'd say, at least 10 minutes more before we get to the top of this one. And just see Angel Lopez in the distance. It doesn't look like he's closing on the front of the race right now. Movistar, I've got a rider just ahead of the red jersey here as well. So how many do we have here? Well, there's 3 riders from Bahrain victorious, working for Jack Haig towards the front of this group. He's a rider that likes things steadier, isn't he, Jack Haig, Sean? And not a surprise in some ways not to see him respond to that big acceleration up front.
Yes, and when you have teammates around you, of course, if you're not one that like those, big punches, big attack on the climb, rely on your teammates, and it looks like Wout Poels is the one who is securing the pace. As we see Lopez there, he is he's hanging there in between, and he's not coming across very quickly. I was expecting him to come across quickly to the Bernal Primož Roglic group here, but it looks like that he's struggling trying to make it across, and we're inside 3 kilometres, and it would be a real interesting one for Bernal if Lopez had joined up, because he would be a one good ride also. He is down in 5th place, and he would be getting into a position where he would like to be, getting ever so closer to the podium, but for the moment he doesn't seem to be making it across, and just hanging in no man's land.
Just looking on the live ticker, the official race website, racecentre.lavuelta.es, it's saying that he's at 12 seconds to that front duo, Miguel Angel Lopez. 36 seconds the gap they're giving, which is the same as we've got on our screens right now, between Haig and Bernal on the attack and Primož Roglic, and then the rest of the group of GC riders. Most of them look to be there, except for the leader of this race, Odd Christian Eiking. Dropped for the second time today. Didn't look good for him the first time up this ascent, and so not a surprise, not looking good for him the second time either. Mas is the rider in 4th place in the blue Movistar. We've got Steven Kruijswijk and Sepp Kuss, the remaining riders for Jumbo-Visma there. The previous time at the climb they didn't manage to get rid of many riders from that team, Sean, but there's only 2 left to help Primož Roglic if it does come back together for the descent and that valley road, and it is a long valley road in which to control things, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and depending on what we have at the top of the climb here, with the gap growing out to just 40 seconds at the moment, and we are getting close to the top of this climb, make the descent, and if it comes back together with all of this group, well then it is a complicated one to control, and they will be looking at Primož Roglic, Jumbo-Visma to control with his teammates there, and in the meantime you have those riders that can try and push on, go in the attack. So the valley can be a one difficult to control, where you have a descent and then you start climbing again. Of course, not as difficult and not as complicated, but will they be able to get back here, the Jack Haig group, because they are quite a bit off here, and the descent is going to be an important one. Will there be anybody prepared or able to take the risk and to try and get across to our 2 men out in front?
Well, we definitely know that Roglic is not going to work with Bernal. He has no reason to, really. Or maybe he could. Just looking at the gap between these two riders at the start of the day on GC, 2 minutes and 45 seconds separate Primož Roglic in 3rd place, at least where he was at the start of the day, and Egan Bernal, who started the day in 7th place on GC. But Bernal, well, he started the day 46 seconds behind Jack Haig on GC, which means he's 1 second shy of leapfrogging him in the general classification. The man in front of Jack Haig in 5th on GC, Miguel Angel Lopez, started there at 3 minutes and 4 seconds, so 1 minute and 16 to Egan Bernal. So, although he hasn't managed to get rid of Roglic, Sean, he is starting to encroach on some of the other riders further ahead of him, none of whom really, except for Jack Haig, have many riders to work for them. Oh, and Angel Lopez, is that Angel Lopez back in this group?
I didn't see that.
I saw another Movistar rider. It's either him or it must be Carlos Verona.
Yes, maybe they're picking up some riders, but yeah, it's an interesting one. But as we talked about on quite a number of occasions, Egan Bernal, you know, for him to finish where he is in the GC standings at 7th, or if he moves up maybe, you know, to 5th place, that's not where he wants to be. He wants to try it from, you know, a long ways out. If he's got the energy and he feels that he's back to somewhere he is best, he's going to try, and that's exactly what he's doing at the moment. You know, just blow the race apart and see what you can do. And yeah, it's going to be a difficult one here. The Valley is going to be a major one here. What will happen there?
Very Contador-esque, this move by Egan Bernal, isn't it? I might not win this race on the overall classification, but even if I don't, I'm going to make it hard for you. Is that a gap opening up, Sean, between the two of them? I mean, he's not showing signs of weakness, Roglic, but he is showing signs that he's really having to try quite hard right now.
Yes, he looks like he's working you know, quite a lot here, and yeah, not surprised, because the way Bernal is going here, you know, he is climbing at a real fast rate, so you could expect that. But is he feeling indifferent a bit? And yeah, that's what Bernal is trying to do, just keep this real infernal pace on and see can he just slowly grind him down on this one a certain amount, and then, you know, what effect will that have on the final climb. And we know Bernal, you know, he can just ride these climbs at such a rate when he's in his top shape. But yeah, the question is, how good is he going to be now in this situation he's in, with the problem getting through the valley and getting onto the final climb of the day with Primož Roglic in tow. But will he be able to put him in difficulty?
That's a gap. Surely he wouldn't leave that 1 metre in front of him if he was feeling absolutely in tip-top shape. I mean, obviously he's going well to be able to follow this attack because no one else has been able to. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but in his facial expression, to me, Roglic is not looking particularly comfortable. And if he pays for this on the last climb, I think he's going to regret going with this move in the first place, because equally he could be behind with his teammates, knowing that they've got a long valley road in which to chase down any gap that Egan Bernal had managed to eke out by the top of this climb. Anyway, behind, Wout Poels, as Sean Kelly rightly pointed out, is the man doing the work for Bahrain Victorious. Jack Haig on his wheel, Gino Mader there as well. Lopez is back in the fold here with this group, so he didn't manage to make it across. But that live ticker I was looking at was wrong. He wasn't at 12 seconds, he was just about to be caught by this group. The two riders remaining there for Jumbo-Visma, who could play an incredibly important role later on in today's stage if things come back together again. Adam Yates is there, Felix Grossschartner is there, and also has company actually in this group from Bora Hansgrohe. And we can also see David de la Cruz, who's been up the road already today. He's there for U18 members. Louis Mainke's teammate of the race leader here, Odd Christian Eiking. And just about hanging on, Guillaume Martin is also in there as well. Making a good fist of this though, Sean. I was expecting to lose big chunks of time having got dropped early on these slopes, but it's only a minute to the main group at least.
Yes, well, it looked like that he was going to lose a stack of time, considering he lost ground on the first time up here and starting to get into difficulty very early in the earlier kilometres of this climb. He is limiting very well and putting in a brave fight here, and it's nice to see. I thought he would be totally out of a picture now, that he would be a number of minutes down the road looking at the situation, but he's battling bravely.
Doesn't need a rain jacket. I think he's feeling quite hot, Primož Roglic. but he hasn't been distanced. Maybe I was reading too much into that very small gap that he was opening up, or allowed to open up from Haig and Bernal to his front wheel. Taking on extra bottles, and you'll notice that they generally have gels taped to those bottles at the moment. And nutrition obviously is such an important thing. Talking to Nico Roche just a few days ago, he was talking about most teams now trying to ingest 100 grams of carbohydrates per hour, but that some teams are now up to 120 that they try and consume every single hour of racing. And that's quite a few gels and bars per hour of racing as well, and very important to get that right on days like today where it's slightly colder and obviously wetter as well. It's not cold, but it's certainly nothing like the temperatures that they were all experiencing over the first 2 weeks of this race. 200 metres to the top, Sean. It looks like we're going to have two riders going over the top together. How do you see Bernal playing it from here? Surely he's not going to just try and tow Primož Roglic the whole way to the foot of the Covadonga, because you'd imagine it'd only be one outcome if he did that.
Well, unless Bernal is back to his best, and if he's feeling real strong, he might just continue on and see what happens. But it's a big ask to do that, and with the group behind as well, you'd expect him just to knock it off and allow the group to come back together. And then, the situation, who's going to ride in front, is going to be Jumbo-Visma going to have to control, and by doing that, well, then you're putting them under pressure with the two men they have here in this the next chasing group of big favourites. So I think that should be the tactic, where he will make the descent. I think when he gets down it, then allow this group to come back to him.
What a fascinating stage we're all having the privilege of watching today. They've gone over the penultimate climb of the day. It means they've got one to go, Lagos de Covadonga. But it's quite some way until they will reach that point. Just to remind you, it's a 12.5k climb, and so they won't be starting it for over 40 kilometres from now. Is Bernal willing to take any risks on the descent? I guess that's the next question. He is a former mountain biker, and he will know that Primož Roglic has been known to falter on occasion down descents. At the same time, he's also known for not having too much fear down the descents either, Primož Roglic. Certainly, given that he came to the sport late, he is not a bad bike handler by any stretch of the imagination. But Sean mentioning the different road surfaces earlier on, how much difference it can make when you've got wet, slippery roads like today to different riders' confidence. And this is the red jersey group. Looks like it's day done for him, but maybe we shouldn't count him out. I think there will be a few pleased riders to get to the finish of today's stage, Sean. It's been relentless.
It has been, relentless, and also the conditions, makes it more difficult again. And we can see there, Bernal is pushing on. Primož Roglic is just, being careful, allow that 2 or 3 bike lengths because of the situation. Bernal is a long way down the general classification, so he's maybe going to take a bit more risk in the corners as well. But Primož Roglic, he cannot afford to do that. And if Bernal, takes a slide out and goes down, well, then you could be out with him. And that's what I think Roglic is thinking about. Just play safe on the descent to get down this one. But it's an interesting one. How is he feeling? As you say, Dan, he looked like he was working on it quite a bit there. Bernal, it's difficult to know because he never changes when he's going. But when he's going badly, he pulls the same face as when he's really flying up these mountains, so it's difficult to read.
I think Bernal will just be pleased to be feeling himself again. He wasn't himself for the first part of this race, but he did what the best riders and the big star riders are able to do. He limited his losses as much as he could over that point. Never lost huge chunks of time, even if he was losing little bits on each very testing stage. So he's still in with a chance, but he had to go long one day if he wanted to have any chance of winning this year's Vuelta a España, and that is what he's done. Oh, he is pushing on down here, isn't he? The gap actually has started to increase on the descent. They went over the top of the climb and it was 44 seconds. He's already eked out another 7 over this group, and even here you can see that Enric Mas a couple of times has let the gap open up in front of him. It's a treacherous and very sinuous descent that they're dealing with here. They've already seen it once, of course, which will help them ever so slightly, but it's not a road, a climb, a descent that any of these riders will know particularly well, if at all. To the best of my knowledge, it's not been used in La Vuelta before. I might have got that wrong, but certainly not been used very often if it has.
No, it's that's true, Dan. This is the first time we've done this climb in the Vuelta, so yeah, luckily they have made it already in better conditions. You have an idea, but you can see as well, it's very well marshalled here with the police, as you can see. Bernal just leaving it run a little bit wide there, but not panic at all. And yeah, it is a real dangerous descent, and luckily that there's a long way in the valley, because if you had just this descent and straight up the final mountain, they might be more interested in pushing it on and taking a bit more risk, but you can see it's a treacherous one.
It is, and Bernal pushing things just a bit too much on that right-hander. You rejoin us with a replay of Haig and Bernal just pushing things a little bit too far on a right-hand hairpin turn, which has allowed Primož Roglic to briefly make his way to the front. Gap continues to rise though. It's almost up to a minute now between the front of the race here on your screen and the group containing Mas, Guillaume Martin, and they're also getting it wrong on that exact same corner. This is absolutely fascinating. If you were Primož Roglic, Sean, what would you do once this descent has finished? Do you sit on Bernal saying, I don't need to work with you? Yes. Or do you push on thinking, well, my closest rivals are actually behind me by a minute?
No, I think the best tactic is just sit on Bernal, just leave him burn himself out, or burn a lot of energy, and then wait for your teammates if they come up as well. And the interesting one is that there's teammates back here from Primož Roglic, so the position he's in the moment, the only thing I can see tactic is just follow and leave Bernal right on the front, and hopefully that this is going to take the sting out of him before the final climb. But now we're getting down into the valley road. It'll be interesting to see what the tactic will be from Bernal.
Yeah, it's a real conundrum really for the Colombian here in the white jersey. Does he press on the valley road, knowing that he's got a man sat on his wheel that's likely to attack him on the climb to the finish, and also knowing that there will be a chase behind him from a far larger group? Also an equally hard decision to make, to sit up having done so much hard work and good work as well on that previous climb. Either way, great to see him back to his best. We needed a man like Haig and Bernal to really ignite this race in the second week, and he hasn't taken long to do it. 50.6 kilometres to go. So they'll be shortly reaching the foot of the descent, after which it's kind of a false flat downhill for a long way in this valley before they start steadily rising and heading towards Lagos de Covadonga, the final climb of today.
And we've seen Bernal there, he's getting on the radio, of course on the descent, difficult to get on the radio, talk to your DS there. It looked like a moment ago he was going for that and trying to get a bit of guidance here to exactly what the situation is behind and what he should be doing, what way he should continue on here.
I was talking earlier about the fact that Spanish riders haven't taken a stage of this race so far. Neither have Ineos Grenadiers. About 8 teams that have taken a win, 4 for De Koning, 3 for DSM, 2 for Jumbo-Visma, both from this man Primož Roglic, 2 for Alpecin, 2 for EF Education Nippo, and 1 apiece for Intermarché, Bahrain Victorious and UAE Team Emirates. Well, I don't think it's the stage that Haig and Bernal is most thinking about today. He wants to get himself right back into the GC competition. And he's making a very good fist of things at the moment. A minute the gap now, so over the course of this descent he's got at least an 18 extra seconds over the group that is following and the group that is chasing here. Looks like it's Gino Maida that's now on the front after Wout Poels overshot that corner that Haig and Bernal also got wrong. Jack Haig in the middle, continuing to ride a very solid race here at La Vuelta. It's the Movistar pairing just behind that. Sepp Kuss, Steven Kruijswijk waiting in the wings to see how much help they need to give their team leader in the latter stage of this race. Oh, getting it wrong again. And And it's another minute back to this man, who does have one teammate for company now, Odd Christian Eiking. We saw him get back, Sean, on the previous descent, but slightly smaller gap on that occasion, but he is going back through the groups.
Yes, he is. He's picking up riders here, and you can see there's a nice group out ahead, and he's putting in a big fight here. I was, as I said a moment ago, I was expecting to lose a lot of time, and certainly wasn't expecting to be at 2 minutes at this point in the race.
He's done incredibly well the whole way through this race. Hats off to Odd Christian Eiking. Oh, just as I say it, he pushed it too far. Ouch, this doesn't look good. Well, I mentioned it earlier, the risks always are greater when you're trying to chase back onto a group, because you're pushing things even harder, trying to make time up, not just play things safe. And it's something we see all too often in the world of cycling. That looks to be Vlasov, unfortunately, who's hit the deck. There's confirmation for you. And he's hit the curb on the side of the road there, and that looks painful. Let's have a look at what happened here. Looked like two separate instances.
Yes, I think the riders just... Oh, yes, there was riders ahead, went down, and we could see Eiking. Maybe he just went for the brakes a little bit too much on the way into the corner there, and just slided himself out. But you can see there was a number of riders on the ground as he came into that corner.
Well, we've had lots of very good drama in this race, but that's not the drama that we ever want to see, of course. All the best to Alexander Vlasov. Odd Christian Eiking looked to be back up and on his feet very quickly there, so it might just be a small amount of skin off. Never quite as bad when it's a wet road as when it's dry. But it doesn't look as though Vlasov was likely to play any further part in this year's Vuelta. Same cannot be said as things stand for these two men. The lead of Haig and Bernal and Primož Roglic over the chasing group continues to increase. 1 minute and 8 seconds it's up to now, despite the best efforts of Bahrain victorious behind. Oh, just before we get towards Lagos de Covadonga, and before Carlton comes back into the commentary box, I've got a quick promo for you all. I know a lot of you are into your cycling podcasts, and many of you will know that here at Eurosport and GCN we've got a recycle podcast with a brand new one out today. Always about history, and today's on Robert Miller and the stolen Vuelta of 1985. Pippa now heavily involved, and it's a very good one. So check that out on all good podcast platforms. It's the Recycle, the Cycling History podcast. If you'd like to watch that later on today or before the start of the stage tomorrow. Back to the race though, coming in towards the last 45 kilometres of it. And the next 30 look to be almost as crucial as the final climb up towards the finish line. As things stand, Haig and Bernal has now leapfrogged Jack Haig, the Australian from Bahrain, victorious in the general classification. So his team have set to work on the front, and he'll be glad, Sean, that he's got teammates left. We always knew that Bahrain victorious had come into this race with an enormous amount of climbing prowess, and they're showing that today.
Yes, we can see they were the ones making the descent, but not too comfortable in the descent, so that's the reason as well. We can see the the advantage creeping out to Bernal and Primož Roglic, and we can see Roglic starting to ride here with Bernal, so that's an interesting one. As we can see, Eiking here just getting back on his bike, and when you come down like that, it just dents your confidence a bit, and as you go on down the climb you're not prepared to descend as well as you have been previous. But yeah, he was just caught out there with the crash in front. I think that was the reason we see Eiking coming down. He had to go for his braking a bit too heavily and just slided himself out. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one now with Roglic looking like he wants to ride also with Bernal, so this advantage we could see it going all the way in the valley and going on to the Lagos de Covadonga with that minute plus advantage.
And we saw a few moments ago the effect that's had on the general classification, at least virtually as things stand on the road right now. Primož Roglic in the Virtual Race League. Guillaume Martin, who still managed to stay in this group despite his injuries, at 35 seconds. Odd Christian Eiking, who had been doing a brilliant job of limiting his losses. After that crash, it leaves him at a virtual standing of 1 minute and 37. Mas at 1:52. Haig and Bernal up to 5th place as things are on the road right now at 2 minutes and 44. There you have it for you again right now. And with that, I will introduce Carlton Kirby back into the commentary box. You've missed a belter middle part of the stage, Carlton.
Well, I'm glad you're happy with yourself. Yeah, quite remarkable. Some for very bad reasons, of course. And just watching Gino Mada here has just called for a little bit of assistance. He's actually looked very good on the descents, I must say. Had there been any more today, I wouldn't be surprised if he took a step forward. He's in the service, of course, of Jack Haig. Paul's looked a bit shaky on the descent as well. There's a few others that have been shaken out of it, unfortunately. And Alexander Vlasov, it's not looking good. We haven't got any news on him just for the time being, but he's pointing to his collarbone, and that's never a nice thing. 43.4 kilometres. I guess, thank heavens, Sean, we're just about done with the descending today.
Yes, I think they will be relieved. A lot of the riders here, you could see it was a treacherous descent, and Vlasov there, we could see he was in difficulty from that chasing group here behind our 2 leaders on the road, and he was trying to get back into the front of affairs, meaning to Jack Haig and the rest there, and got it wrong on the corner, slided out, and caused problems for quite a number of riders, and didn't look good at all. But we're getting down out to the flatter parts in the valley, and we can see 124 to Bernal. And the interesting point is, as I mentioned before Dan left, is that Primož Roglic is prepared to start riding with Bernal, sharing the pace, pulling on the front, and in the meantime the gap is growing out to the chasing group of the rest of the favourites.
Well, the questions are being asked behind, aren't they? Not least of Movistar, with Miguel Angel Lopez, who tried to bridge over on the climb. Enric Mas as well, a trap within that group. A group that at the moment looks like it's had the heart of it kind of ripped out ever so slightly. You'd think, well, 1:27 with 42 kilometres to go, especially with a big climb, they've got a chance to get back, but it's the pair that are out front, Sean, that makes that a difficult prospect.
Yes, well, it's going to be an interesting one now to see what will happen in this chasing group. And we did see Maida, they were starting to talk with, or trying to talk with, the Movistar guys to see what they're prepared to ride, but I can't see any of the 2 Movistar men riding here, although they're the ones who are going to start losing out in the GC, because in the meantime Bernal is moving up all the time, and up ahead you have Lopez and Mas, who are 4th and 5th. Bernal is down in 7th place, so he's going to start eating into that advantage, and he's pulled back a lot already, and unless Mas and Lopez can do something on the final climb to Lagos, they're going to start getting worried. But it's difficult to see them start riding. I think they'll wait and see and just play, leave some of the other teams do all the riding in the valley.
We shall see. There'll be an alliance, you can be sure about that. Gus Hartner won't like what's happening either. .41 kilometres to go, just over. And I'm just wondering what Bahrain Victorious are prepared to put into this drive as well. They'll want to lean on Movistar, but they're nobody's fools at the moment. And there's a couple of watchmen as well, you might say, in Kruiswijk and Kuss, who are going to be following any moves, and certainly not helping out in that regard. So you have 3 from Bahrain Victorious, we remind you, with Jack Haig, who's Gino Mada and Wout Poels. Gino Mada's had a spectacular season this year, and it's been a little bit quiet. He's only 6 minutes and 47 down, so Jack Haig closer at hand, of course. 3 minutes and 35. We've got a big test coming up, and I'm just wondering, it's holding at the moment just over 1.5 minutes. In fact, it's expanding ever so slightly. We've asked the question as to who's going to chase them down. It's a question of shared work responsibilities, Sean, and there'll be a lot of tired legs and minds at the end of today. The stress is on that descent as well, which has clearly found out a few. I was taking a big breath, a big gasp when Bernal had to unclip when he got into the leaf litter on the side of the road, reminding us that autumn is not that far away. He's a young man, a long way until he gets to that part of his career as well. This is a big moment for him. He's riding with Roglic, and I think it will serve them well to ride together, and I think Roglic is realising that.
Yes, well, it's certainly serving well for Haig and Bernal, because he's going to move up in the GC standings, and that's what you've got to try and do. We did talk about Bernal, in the past number of days. He's not going to sit there and finish in 5th, 6th place. He wants to get on the podium and wants to win this race. And now the question is, will he be able to do that? What will he do on the climb to Lagos to Covadonga here? Because this is going to be a real test. It's a brutal climb. The conditions they've been in today, the way they've been racing, the point we're in the race, the 3rd week of racing, all of that. If he's coming into the real good shape, which would be difficult to see that he turns it around so quickly, but again, we've been hearing that he's feeling better in the last number of days, so possibly that he can be back very close to his best, and if he is, well, then we could see a battle between the two big men here that we have out leading the race at the moment.
Do you think, Sean, big question this, do you think that Primož Roglic fears working with Bernal, with the big climb up ahead, that Bernal could then end up not only seeing off a few of his rivals, but also gapping Roglic when we get to the climb itself? We'll ask the question of Sean in a moment again, after we are rejoined by our wider Eurosport family. Welcome back, everybody. Just posing the question as whether Primož Roglic here is taking great care as to who he shakes hands with, you might say. He's out here with Egan Bernal, who is clearly on stellar form today. Now, the question is, does Roglic work with Bernal? It appears they are doing at the moment. They've extended their gap to many of those who would try and unseat them, and are suffering because Bernal is up front with Roglic. We're talking about Mas and Lopez, who are in the chasing group in 1:41. Likewise, Jack Haig is back there as well, with teammates Gino Mada and Wout Poels. Grosshartner is well placed overall, 5:31 down. All of these guys are missing out. Sepp Kuss and Steven Kruijswijk are busy at the moment, just policing matters. But does Roglic fear working with Bernal, because Bernal is so strong today? He might indeed not only see off those behind him, but indeed start to encroach on Roglic in the climb. Sean, what do you reckon?
Well, I think if Roglic was really concerned, he'd not ride here, because he has a big buffer on Egan Bernal in the overall standings. He also have two teammates behind, so if the group come back, well, then he has got the teammates to control things and start riding on the front to get onto the final climb to Lagos. But he seems to be happy enough to share the pacing here, so that tells me that Roglic should be feeling okay. And we will see on this final climb who is going to be the strongest here of the two big riders out in front. Will they stay out in front? 1:45, it looks very much they will, because this gap is growing all the time, and we have the chase being set by Bahrain Victorious, but they do not seem to be closing it down at all. On the descent, I wasn't expecting to close down, because they were not descending good from the Bahrain Victorious team, but on this flatter section now, it doesn't look that they're organised and eating into the advantage of our two leaders on the road.
Ça restera une de mes plus belles victoires.
Thibaut Pinot talking about today's final test. He says it's always one of the most beautiful victories for me. I won against very strong riders, such a legendary place in Spain, and I remember the day very well. I was very strong. The weather was just like it is, foggy and cold. Winning alone on the Lagos de Covadonga was one of my best memories, and this is a victory that makes me enter a close circle of riders that have won are one of the great great climbs on all of the Grand Tours, and it was a stage victory that I was looking for. Well, in the briefings we said that the leaders like Yates, Valverde, Mas and Lopez are going to attack, and my goal was to counter-attack in the last 5 kilometres and attack once and for all, and that's what I did. And luckily on this day I had good legs, and in the finish with the fog and between the ups and downs I could make some gaps, so I took 30 seconds at first, and then I knew that I would win. It's really a beautiful climb, and it's always been part of the legend of La Vuelta. A few rises and falls towards the end in the last 5 kilometres as well, and that's where I went and I made the difference. It was magnificent. There we are, legendary climb it is, and it looks like it's not going to be solo, it's going to be a duo out front. With this sort of distance and the climb that we've got up ahead, you would suspect that 1 minute and 54 might not be enough, but it probably is for the two that are there, Primož Roglic and Haig and Bernal. They are working together. There was a bit of reticence, I think, from Primož Roglic, who was leaning on Bernal, at least at the beginning. I think it's to the profit of both of them, and of course when it comes to the time trial at the end of this race, if they're holding that gap between them, and there you are, Sean, stated for you, I think Roglic would take that, so this is well worth the candle for him to burn, even at both ends. It's worth going deep today. I'm not saying tomorrow is going to offer up any kind of recovery, because it's going to be tough again, but the way both of these are riding today, they are looking like our principals.
Yes, well, they both have showed on the previous climb that they are the strongest of the GC men up to this point in the race. When we did see Bernal kicking off there and Roglic immediately in his wheel, it looked like Lopez, when he got out of the rest of the group of favourites there, he was going to come across, but just struggled and never made it. And now we have this situation where the gap to the rest of the chasing group is growing all the time, going out to almost 2 minutes at the moment. So it's a one where it looks like that the two men that are leading the race are going to go all the way onto the final climb, and who is going to be the best. And that's both seem to be very confident, and more so Primož Roglic. He is happy to ride with him on the flat section. On the descent he was just playing it careful and following Bernal. I'm not surprised, because Bernal was pushing and taking a bit of risk on the descent, and we did see in that corner where he almost overcooked it and had to unclip. But this is going to be an interesting final here to the Lagos, and will we see some of the riders who are further down trying to come across, but with a 2 minute advantage now for our two leaders, it's pretty much going out of possibility for anybody in that chasing group to be able to get to the two men up front at this late point in the race. And unless there's a panic situation back in that chasing group where they start riding a bit more into the final climb, they might be able to close it down. But 2 minutes, this is a performance by the two men here on our screen.
Still going up. Remy Rojas is the man who's working for Guillaume Martin. He's setting the pace amongst the pack. They're all following on him at the moment. There's been a few wake-up calls for a few riders, and all of a sudden it is Bora that come through. Ben Zweihoff and Felix Grosshartner tucked in here. You can see Grosshartner a little bit further back, just taking a feed as it stands at the moment. There doesn't look like there's the heart to chase at the moment, and I'm just starting to wonder whether everyone's reconfiguring and starting to think about podium places rather than victory here. Adam Yates takes a big toot on the bottle. No need for him to do any work. He's got a teammate up the road in the form of Haig and Bernal, who wears the young rider's jersey. And by the end of the day, it's looking ever more likely that Primož Roglic is going to be happy in red, and very happy with the performance today. I am certain of it. Meanwhile, here is Odd Christian Eiking and their group, 3 minutes and 49 down. It's been a sprightly and forthright performance by Odd Christian Eiking as well. Sean, brave certainly. He's been down on the deck. He's tried his best to honour that jersey. There's been a couple of occasions when he's looked like he may well be just tailed off the back on the Category 1 test, both of them that we've already had. If he's struggling on those, he's certainly going to struggle at the end today.
Well, he is riding a super performance here, and he was in difficulty on the first time up the first category climb, then we see him, very early the second time on that climb, getting distant, but just walking away at it, climbing at his own pace and limiting the losses. And when you see where he is at the moment, I was expecting him to be many minutes here at this point, when you look at a long ways back when he was in difficulty. And he's also been on the deck, of course, which affected his time here lost to the front end of race.
Bernie Eisel speaking to Alberto Contador about Lagos de Covadonga and the climb that they're in. Here they are.
Alberto and I also made it up to Lagos de Covadonga. The riders actually will come up here, drop down here, and this is I would say the final corner. To the right, 1k to go, still downhill, then it kicks up again. But we had actually some good fun here. You told us some good stories, especially climbing up Lagos de Covadonga together with Valverde. I think it was in Purito. And will it be similar today for the other riders?
Bueno, esperemos que no.
Well, let's hope not, because it'll mean that they will arrive one by one. And of course, how amazing Lagos looks out by here on the bike. Let's talk about the anecdote on the last 5 kilometres of Lagos. There were parts where there's a descent and some slightly uphill parts as well. I remember well the year 2014 it was, where Chris Froome came from the Tour de France, same as me. We attacked each other here, and we got united, Valverde, Rodriguez and me, and I told them to collaborate with me, and that we could drop Froome tomorrow is another day, and everyone fights for himself for some reason, because they didn't have that much energy, or they thought I was the best strategy. They didn't collaborate, and so Froome arrived too close, really. And the day after, I was talking to Valverde, and he said that Froome didn't have the legs. 2 days after, he was hanging up on Farapona, and in Ancaras he ended up second on the Vuelta. So it's a climb where if you select the riders at the top, they need to collaborate. The important part is the start, the very start of this climb, though. Get that right.
La parte importante es el inicio del puerto.
You've heard it, they have to work together, but we also will find out today if Primož Roglic is really the man to beat, or if he has his weakness today. We will find out. It's actually the right climb.
Spanish alliances, Sean, they have been lethal in the past, haven't they? And yeah, I guess we're just grateful. I think probably Chris Froome is grateful that day is over. You often find riders of the same nation working together, and I guess in a certain way this is one race where Spanish riders and even Hispanic riders, it's been a bit of a paucity of results for them. Spain would love a victory. It doesn't look like it's going to happen today.
No, highly unlikely, as we can see. It's a situation now with the 2 men out front. Still, that advantage just ticking out ever so slowly, and yeah, we're getting to the bottom of the final climb, and yeah, Enric Mas, he's been waiting here, but is there riders here like Lopez, Mas, that can really put in a really strong performance? Adam Yates as well, he is there sitting waiting. He could be also one who really push on, and the terrain is definitely there's a lot of opportunities, as Alberto said there, if you can ride together, but it's always difficult to get the guys to collaborate and just pull together. If a rider is suffering a bit and the rider is riding stronger, you feel that he is good. I have to be careful. If I ride with him, then he's going to drop me, and he's going to just blow me up before the end. And there's all sorts of tactics that goes on in the mind of the riders. But we can see here it's the team that has been securing the pace on the front all the time. Bahrain victorious, and yeah, they're going to keep this thing to keep the gap going out to the minimum and get onto the climb, and then Jack Haig is going to have to do his ride up the final climb. But there's a lot, I think, of action to come out of this group here we have on our screen at the moment, because there's a lot of interest in the GC standings, and today is an opportunity. So yeah, it's going to be a battle now with the two up front, and then there will be that battle as well for the podium places, and maybe also for the GC standings. I mean, the win of the race, it's not over yet. It's never over. Certainly on the big mountain days are over, and tomorrow's another massive one.
How much have they spent before we get to the moment where I think a few chips are going to be cashed in? It's our final climb, and so some of you going off for the last commercial break of today, you'll be grateful to hear. And we're grateful for all of you watching on the Eurosport app, or indeed the GCN app, for having invested and staying with us. If you're hearing our voice right now, it means that you have. We've got an intermediate sprint coming up. No bonuses on this, by the way. There were bonus seconds on the top of Lomanea. But our Lagos de Covadonga, there's an intermediate sprint just to happen in a short while. Of no consequence to these guys. It's all about the gaps that they're posting on everybody else, and it's holding at the moment at just over 2 minutes. This section, Sean, where a fighting force behind and some quality riders, let's not disregard them by any means. If they work together as a unit behind, they got their nose in the wind far less frequently than two riders up front. Can they make any inroads? That's the question.
Well, it doesn't look like they're prepared to ride here in this chasing group. It looks like the Bahrain guys are the ones who are continuing on to set the pace. We'll have to just have a pan down there, but it looks like Cofidis are involved as well. But yes, we can see there's Pools is continuing on to set the pace. In the meantime, the riders from the team of Jumbo-Visma just sitting on, and we see there's three of them there now. So Oman is back in there as well with Kreiswick and Kuss. So we have numbers here, but they're not certainly going to do anything. And the rest we can see Movistar just following as well. So they're all just leaning on the rider here on the front from the Bahrain victorious team.
Seems to me, Sean, as the weather seems to have suddenly improved just a little bit, and that's a blessing. It seems to me that they are now thinking of preserving themselves for the final climb, and such are the ramps that we've got to deal with. There's no surprise there, because you want as much energy as you can possibly muster, and these guys, if they're going to take the day, I think the heart of the challenge may well have been knocked out, especially with so many from Jumbo-Visma policing the role. Remy Rojas tried to close the gap on behalf of Guillaume Martin, but I think it's a forlorn hope. I think everyone at the moment is just watching those, well, metaphorically, because they can't see them just for the time being. The road twists and turns, but they're watching that gap just hold, Sean. Even on the flat here, 2 minutes and 8, 2 minutes and 7. It's a modest closure, and again Remy Rojas has put to the front on behalf of Guillaume Martin to try and save the day. The Frenchman would love to have taken over the red jersey, but unfortunately he's got, just like everybody else here who is the challenger overall, Bernal and Roglic are working magnificently. The gap is just narrowing ever so slightly. 24.3 to go. Let's see what happens when we get to these inclines. I suggest it's more important for Haig and Bernal to pose a big gap here. He's the one who will take the biggest vault up the standings. Just going to welcome back our wider Eurosport family. Welcome back, everybody. No more breaks before we get for you to enjoy before we get to the finish line. Something, of course, that's avoided by those who subscribe to the Eurosport app or indeed the GCN app. Looking further back here, and they've really been leaning on Cofidis and Remy Rojas, who's done an awful lot of work. He's getting a bit of a turn coming here, but not much of one. Oscar Cabedo, it looks like, may well have just be helping out moderately. Meanwhile, the red jersey here on Odd King's back. He's at 4 minutes and 8. Primož Roglic and Egan Bernal working superbly, and every time the gap just narrows a little bit. When Remy Rojas came on the front of the chasing group, not this group, you understand, this is group 5 on the day. There's riders all over the place. We suspected there'd be some big gaps today. Roglic and Bernal working beautifully together for the time being. They'll bury a hatchet in each other a little bit later on, you can be certain of that. Egan Bernal's going to take the biggest vault here, so as far as Roglic is concerned, I don't think he fears Bernal deeper into this race. But what is ominous, Sean, is we've got another big day of climbing tomorrow, and Ineos Grenadiers have woken up to the task Adam Yates looks good. He hasn't got to do any work. He can save his legs for tomorrow. He could be a vital part of another assault by Egan Bernal, and this time, or tomorrow, we'll see whether Primož Roglic can sustain that. He's had to work on his own today, Roglic.
Yes, he has, and it was a one that it was always interesting to see what they would do when they got down the descent, with Bernal securing the pace on the climb and then doing all the descent. Would he work, or would he allow that group to come back? And no, it's been the case. He's riding here with Bernal pretty much equal, and they're holding that 2:19 and an advantage. Maybe grew out a little bit in the past while again. And in the chasing group, we have the same two teams controlling and trying to limit the loss of our two leaders on the road, Rojas, and we have seen also Poels was there. And Roglic, of course, when you look at the GC standings, Mas was very close. He was only at 35 seconds. Miguel Angel Lopez at 1:29 to him in the overall, where Bernal was 2 minutes 45, I think it was. So it was a situation where, by riding here and taking more time out of his nearest rivals, it's a good situation to be in. And he seems to be confident here, Roglic, that he's prepared to ride with him. And Bernal now is going to make grounds in the GC standing. But will they be able to hold this advantage on the final climb? Will the guys like Mas and Lopez and some of the other ones, Jack Haig, for the two riders here, but the ones that are riding on the front at the moment, they're going to ride themselves to a standstill to the bottom of the climb, and then that's their day over, notably Rojas and the Bahrain victorious riders that we have here on the front of that chasing group.
Well, anyone who reaches out to those out front is going to find themselves with Bowman, Kruijswijk, Kuss or Ullmann on their back wheels. And so it's almost a thankless task, Sean, and a great situation, I guess, for Primož Roglic, that he's got four marshals that will be monitoring the situation behind and riding in. It's a very, very wise performance by Jumbo-Visma. They've played a cagey race. Few people have criticised, really, the fact that they have altered their strategy, but it's been a clever one, and you can't knock it, Sean. They have ridden superbly, and clearly, whatever they put in the bank here, Roglic is spending now, and that's wise.
Yes, well, Roglic is not afraid to ride here, and that's nice to see a big champion. He could have said, well, I have a big advantage on Egan Bernal, and I can afford just to sit and have two teammates, which he had. Now he has three back there, so we see a problem here for the rider from Bora.
Yep, Grosjean is on the deck, I'm afraid. Well, this shows how much they were pushing on as well. Just coming into the corner, Ben Zweihoff has been doing a lot of pacing on behalf of Grosjean, but any upset at a moment such as this, I'm afraid, has a big impact, because you've got a battle to get back in, and that does not bode well for Grosjean. It sits at 5 minutes and 31. He could find himself in a bit of trouble today, because he's got to get back in on his lonesome, Sean, and the pace is up.
Yes, we can see there the pace is up, and when you get a spill like this going into the final, it's not the time at all to have it, and he's going to have to give an effort here to get back in here. But we can see the Bahrain victorious riders are just starting to push on here a bit more, and you can see the Jumbo-Visma riders, the three ones sitting on there, but that's not going to have an effect on what Lopez can do, Mas can do, Jack Haig, Adam Yates, all of those riders. If they go in the attack here on the Lagos, well, if the riders from the team of Jumbo just sit on, they're not going to be concerned about that, because you just ride up the climb, and the advantage you have sitting the wheel, and give them an advantage anyway. They're all well down in the overall standings, because Kuss is down in 9th place, and the rest are a lot further down, the way out of the GC standing. So you just don't think about the riders that are going to be following you on the wheel and trying to distract you more. So you just have to focus, get everything out on the climb itself, and see what you can do, and see what time you can pull back, and also take from this chasing group other riders that they need to take time from.
Look at the pace they're maintaining at the moment. We've got a speedo running for you. Considering what they've already dealt with, Sean, they really mean business here, and both Bernal and Roglic prepared to go deep, and they're going a lot deeper than the chase at the moment.
Yes, well, with two riders, as you mentioned, Carlton, it's a difficult one. I know on the front of the chasing group you have 2 or 3 riders as well, but those guys are not thinking about the climb. When they get to the first uphill section of the Lagos, they're going to be finished. Their day is over and they'll ride up at an easier pace, where those guys, they're going to have to fight it out here to stay with each other, and who's going to be the one that will prove strongest in the end. And both are sharing the pace pulling here at this very fast rate, and it's going to be an interesting final here.
We only have 6 kilometres before we get to the foot of the Lagos de Covadonga. So let's have a look at what they are going to be dealing with. There is a climbing approach to it, by the way, of about 4 and 5%. But let's have a look for you, shall we? Well, the first zone of hurt is very early on, as you can see. That's about with 11 kilometres to go. You hit that 10%. It's kind of counted back the wrong way here, but nonetheless. Then you see the major test is with about 6.5 kilometres of the day remaining, where we hit 16%, so 6 kilometres into the climb. And then just have a look at those sections, bizarre downhill runs within it, and in fact one of them taking them to the lakes themselves, which give the climb its name, the Lagos de Covadonga. Lakes high up. Apparently they are stocked with fish, and in days of old, when you were sentenced to hard labour, you could actually choose to carry barrels of fish up to stock the lakes. There you go. So I've no idea for whose benefit that was. Local landlords, one can only imagine. But nonetheless, hard labour it certainly will be, Sean, although the gap has come down, and in fact the chasers have found 20 seconds in short order. You thought that it may well be on the wide open plain leading to this climb, Sean, that some ingress might be made into that gap, and so it has proven. Just a little.
And we can see the reason that it is coming down. Bahrain are really committing there on the front, and also the covetous rider Remy Rochas is very much pushing it on here as we get within 6-7 kilometres of the start of the final climb, and not surprising that this gap is coming down. I think the 2 leaders out front, they're thinking now, well, I don't want to ride too much here. Bernal is probably thinking, if I ride really strong and do more than Roglic, and vice versa, they're all just maybe taking it back a bit and thinking of this final climb. And in the meantime, that chasing group is closing down and eating into the advantage of our 2 men.
Well, we often worry and wonder about any cracks that might open up in Primož Roglic armoury. And in a race that you've kind of, despite the fact he hasn't been in the leader's jersey, you've just seen that on the back of Christian Eiking, who's at 4 minutes and 44. The fallen Felix Großschartner, by the way, finds himself nearly 40 seconds down on those he was part of, the Group 2 that sits at 1 minute and 51. So unfortunately, Felix Großschartner looks like he had a tumble at precisely the wrong moment. Bottles going back into the car. I'm not sure whether it's a warm one they're asking for today, because temperatures, despite the rain, hovering around 24 Celsius. So it's still warm out there. You might still want a cold one, bizarrely. And here we are. They're coming into the terrain which suits them. Who does it suit best, Sean, from what you've seen of their riding today? And the class that Egan Bernal has suddenly we found here is fantastic. He's right back to form. This is how it stacks up overall. Guillaume Martin still holding on to that a second place. As it stands, Bernal is now in 4th place. Enric Mas is back here. What about Bernal's form today, Sean? Do you think he can find a gap on Roglic on the climb?
Well, it's going to be a very interesting one. This is, the Bernal you would be expecting to see in a 3-week race. Unfortunately, the earlier part of this Vuelta, he seemed to be struggling, but certainly he is in a lot better condition than we have seen him in the earlier tests of the race. And he did talk about that. He was feeling more comfortable, the warm conditions as well. Maybe that has helped. We're in much cooler conditions. We have been in a number of days, and today is a real cool day. And Bernal, we see in the Giro the way he can perform in the bad weather conditions. Who is going to be the best on this one? I just can't. I just can't see that. I can't see who is going to be the strongest. I would expect Roglic on Pat's form, but with Bernal the way he's going,
we shall see. I don't know either, Sean. It's been some time since Roglic has had to work like this. I think that's. I think you might say he's had some spectacular results. Of course, Valdepeñas belonged to him when he beat Enric Mas to take a road stage to add to his time trial. But it's been quiet, and I guess we've been waiting for a moment such as this. We knew that today was the day. I actually thought the attacks would be more numerous from different quarters, and in the end, one man has stood up to take him on, and it's Egan Bernal, who wears that young rider's jersey. No jersey at all on the back of Primož Roglic. It should be red by the end of the day, but let's see by what margin, and indeed how these guys share the duty. Still not on the climb just yet, Sean, but it's looming large in everybody's minds. It has been since the beginning of the race, and indeed when the course was announced. Covadonga, we are back and we love it.
Yes, and we're getting ever so close. We can see here just over 2 kilometres to the start of the climb, and we can see the advantages coming down all the time here. 1:38. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one now, and the riders that are chasing, they're setting it up for their teammates, and it will be an interesting final here between our two men out in front. Who is going to be the strongest? How much of an advantage can they hold on to? Because they are making a big effort here, Primož Roglic and Egan Bernal, where the other favourites here are just sitting on, being carried along and waiting for the final climb. And on the flat here with Bahrain and Cofidis setting the pace all the time, that is a big help, because when you can just follow on the wheels on the flat section in the valley, you can spare so much energy, and that is going to be also vital here on the final climb. How much the two men out front will have, and how fresh the other favourites who are being carried along now for a long time in this valley section.
All credit to Großschartner, who's managed to tag himself back onto the back of this group. We have Gorka Izagirre, who is here as well with a brother Jon. Incidentally, it was 2018. We've heard about Thibaut Pinot from Thibaut Pinot himself. Miguel Angel Lopez was 20 seconds down, and a couple of seconds further back was Simon Yates, brother of Adam. So Miguel Angel is part of the folklore almost of this race, and he finds himself in the chase. And now a diminished margin of 1 minute and 33. They were 45 seconds better off than this not that long ago. So I'm just wondering whether this climb will have an impact. There may be some fresher legs back here, and this is a reach out already that you are starting to see. So the gaps can be more modest by the time we get to the top, even if somebody does strike out like Thibaut Pinot did back in 2018. In 2016 it was Nairo Quintana, you might remember, although Chris Froome had a good old dig that day as well. We've had some individual victories at the line. And indeed some from a breakaway. I don't even know whether you can really count this as such. It seems to be the main body of the favourites, and therefore the peloton. We've got two up front, Roglic and Bernal, and they're being chased down just for the time being by a rekindled fighting force of Bahrain victorious after what's been a sterling chase by Remy Rojas on behalf of Guillaume Martin, who still maintains second place overall, and he looks good for that, Sean. And if this gap comes down any further, you might find that Guillaume Martin leads the day if the drive by this pair does not hold a gap of 1 minute and 30. You never know.
Yes, you never know, but it's going to be difficult for Guillaume Martin to see him really putting up that performance here with the company he's in at the moment and the way he's been riding in this race. But you never know, he could put up an excellent performance today. We can see the Bahrain riders there, Caruso and Wout Poels just really pushing on, and also the riders from Cofidis, and the advantage is coming down now, and we're just about to go on to this final climb of the day, and I think we're going to see action out of the chasing group. We have to see some attacks from the riders that are in the overall standings. Mas and Lopez, Jack Haig should be trying something. Adam Yates, he can try something, because if he just puts in a big attack and gets away on his own, he's not pulling anybody across with him. So there's a lot of possibilities for a lot of riders further down the GC as we are about to go on to this climb of Lagos de Covadonga.
Spectacular, just passing by the Basilica, absolutely beautiful. It's part of the pilgrim route that we are following this year, having started, of course, in the great cathedral in Burgos, destination ultimately the cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, and it's a religious route almost that we have been following throughout this year's Vuelta. Right now, say your prayers for absolutely everybody, because Primož Roglic and Haig and Bernal are taking on the Covadonga, famed indeed, quite rightly, and the pair of them expected to work together, but I think there's going to come a certain point where they're going to attack each other, and we will see. Will they be content to ride all the way to the line, Sean, or do you think there's a point to prove here?
There's definitely a point to prove, and they're going to try and continue on riding on the front and sharing the pace, and we will see now quickly if there's one of them feeling it a bit more. But 12 kilometres of climb, there's a long way to go up this one, and it's when you get further up into the steep section, that's where I think we will see the test being put in at the 5 kilometre mark. Then that's a really killer of percentage, goes up to 20% for a bit over 2 kilometres. So I think that is the place where we might see somebody testing the other ones, and the stage victory, of course, as well. This is a very important stage to win here on Lagos. It's like in the Tour of France, some of the big monument climbs. To win here, it's important for them all. And an interesting stat here is the riders who have been in the red jersey at the end of this stage, most of them have went on to win the Vuelta outright. So I think Primož Roglic will be thinking of that as well. He'll be aware of that, and this is a big stage for all here, and also the GC is for to play for as well. So there's so much on this final climb here to Lagos.
Well, Mas and Lopez will want to enhance their positions as well, which have been encroached into by Haig and Bernal, who's further up the road as we pass by some of the spectacular little caves and hollows that contain those chapels. Absolutely spectacular. Meanwhile, 11.4 kilometres, which suggests that we're on the 10% inclines. Here we are, maximum is 20 today. The road book suggests 16, but it's an awful lot worse than that on some of the twists and turns. And as Sean quite rightly points out, they're hellish in their frequency as we get deeper into our approach. And indeed, the road itself really is a nasty concoction of twists and turns, intensifying almost with the last 5 kilometres as we get towards the top, and we have the rises and falls as we kind of skirt around the mountain. Here we are then. So, what have you got? This is the big question, Sean. You've got to put your cards on the table today or indeed tomorrow, and that's precisely what we're doing. And first, to at least engage with the hill, this mighty mountain, are indeed Bahrain victorious. This bodes well for a startling finale. 1:21, they're not that far. This leash is shortening, Sean.
Yes, it is, and we can still see the men are riding on the front, Pouls and Caruso, and they're going to set as strong a pace as possible on the earlier slopes of this final climb, and pull back the advantage out to the two men here on our screens. And they will come to a point then when it's the day is over for them, so you can afford to do that. Keep pushing on, pretty much to 100%, and when you blow, then you just pull over and you're going to climb it at a very slow pace. So you can do that, as we can see the Bahrain riders doing here. And who's going to attack out of the main peloton, of the main group of favourites? It's not a peloton anymore, of course, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting day. And you would expect Mas to start stirring things up, because he is the one who has been very performant. Lopez, we've seen today, maybe he decided it wasn't a good tactic to keep on going and try and get across to Bernal, which I doubt very much. But yeah, there's a lot to play here for the riders in the overall standings at this point in the race.
Gorka Izagirre just starting to pedal squares at the back. Louis Meintjes is still tucked in within this group. There's been a reassembly here, I think you might say, a reconfiguration really. A couple of gaps opening up, but 4 for Bahrain Victorious with, as Sean was pointing out, Damiano Caruso. We've got Jack Haig, Gino Mada and Wout Poels here. So they are able to offer up a dominant fist which they'll shake at the sky, I am certain. Sam Oman, having done a lot of the saving work here, and likewise Remy Rojas, who worked so hard in the service of Guillaume Martin to make sure that he had a chance of staying in runners-up spot today. I'm looking for Guillaume Martin within this group. You can see, I can't see him just for the time being, but easily screened. You can see as well that Adam Yates is playing a great policing role, and if he can get away himself, Sean, he'll try and enhance his own position deeper into this climb. That's how it stacks up for the time being. Bernal trailing by 42 seconds Mas, who's within this group. So Mas is still in a handsome place courtesy of the efforts he's put in so far during this race. I'm feeling sorry for those who are struggling, Sean, and there'll be plenty today that will.
Certainly there'll be a lot of riders struggling big time.
Oh look, it's Guillaume Martin.
Yes, not looking good. And as I mentioned earlier, Guillaume Martin did not look comfortable on the previous climb, that first category 1, and again starting to feel the pressure here. Not nice to see here, and his teammate has done an excellent job, but again he's starting to run out of power.
He is. Just up ahead of him, Felix Grosshardt got back in. That shows great strength and determination after he slammed down on the deck, Sean.
Yes, it did. He made a great recovery, and at a late point to get back in there, it just shows that he is feeling good. So how is Bahrain Victorious feeling with Mada, Haig and Poels, the usual suspects from that team who are tucked in? Jack Haig sitting at 3 minutes and 35. Gino Mada 6 minutes and 49. You can see on the bottom right of your screen how they are stacked up. Jack Haig still with some thoughts about how the day might pan out. In fact, we've got our own assumptions, but nothing certain on this day. In a minute and 22, they're still holding out front. Roglic and Bernal still working together. I'm afraid they've worked over quite a few, and this is an uncomfortable view, I think, for Guillaume Martin and Cofidis. They've ridden a great race, Sean, but just like old Christian Eiking, it was just a mountain too far. Yes, we did see it. Already today we see little signs of that cracking from Guillaume Martin, and now he is starting to crack and get in difficulty very early. But he's just going to keep on working at it. Maybe he just decided this pace a little bit strong for me at the moment, and knock it back a bit, get into my rhythm. We could see him just getting into a rhythm and maybe recovering a bit, but we can see the gap is growing out for the moment, and with Poels setting the pace here. It's quite a strong one, and yes, it's going to be a difficult day for Guillaume Martin, and the GC standings, is starting to slip away from him, but he can still fight for a place in the top in the top of the overall standings. But where he was coming into this morning in second place in a real strong position, but he was looking earlier in the day that he wasn't going to challenge to take the red jersey at the end of this one.
It's a real shame for him, but a great effort, I think, by Guillaume Martin throughout the reach of this race. I think he may have taken some cheer in the misfortune of old Christian Eiking earlier on, not in a bad way, you understand, but just that, given the opportunity to take a step forward, unfortunately that gap is now extending. No rider wants another rider to hit the deck, but old Christian Eiking was already struggling before he took a crash today. 9.4 kilometres from home. This is a slightly easier section we're on at the moment, hovering between 8 and 9%, but it's going to get rude, as Sean said, with about 6.5 kilometres to go. We're not that far away from those kind of inclines. Minute 28. Pace behind them has not gone into attack mode just yet, Sean. They're still dieseling for now, but somebody you kind of feel may have the opportunity to light it up. Now, I'm kind of thinking Miguel Angel Lopez, to be honest, the way he's been riding over the last couple of days. I know that Enric Mas took a tumble and hurt himself, but he is also up towards the pointy end. But I don't know, can one of them reach out for a little bit more glory, or is that going to have to be tomorrow? Oh, brave ride here. You know, when you get a teammate back, Sean, it counts for an awful lot. And Remy Rojas has ridden himself back up to Guillaume Martin to offer a back wheel and say, "Come on, mate, let's do this." Floris Tira with them as well. That's a great ride by Remy Rojas.
Yes, he's riding excellent today. A real good performance from him, and it's nice to see that he's come back to him. You could see that Guillaume Martin was up ahead of him on the climb there, made the effort to get to him, and now just starting to pull a little bit on the front. And you can see the cars up in front, so they haven't lost that much. And as I said, maybe he can rally around a bit and limit the losses on this one, because in the GC standings, Guillaume Martin is a long way ahead of the riders in front of him. Jack Haig was quite a long ways down. Lopez, all of those guys, they have a lot of time to make up. So if he can just get into a rhythm there and limit the losses, then he might be able to stay in a good place in the overall standings at the end of the day. And in the meantime, we can see it's the Bahrain victorious. They're doing a powerful ride here for Jack Haig, and as long as they can keep on riding at this strong pace, they are going to be left do that. And I think the riders like Lopez and maybe Yates, if they want to think of attacking, it will be on this steep section when we get just around the 5 kilometres into the climb.
Roglic is just pacing away out of this corner, which was free-wheeled into by Egan Bernal here. We were talking about some of the gaps that were just starting to open up on the climb between Roglic and Bernal. I suspect we're going to see a gap between the pair of them, but I'm not quite sure as to which way it might swing between them as we get to the end. I'm starting to believe more in Roglic, Sean. I was suspecting he was struggling a little bit earlier. Minute 37 though, they're holding a margin on these guys, and a handsome one as well. That shows great fortitude in the first questions that are asked on this slope. But we've got the worst part of this climb to come.
Yes, we have, and our two leaders are getting pretty close to that section now. With about 7 kilometres, 3 or 4 kilometres from the finish, that's where it does start to kick up. And the first percentage is 10%, then it goes to 12%, and then there's a section where it's 20%. So there's that 2.5 kilometres roughly where it's a real leg breaker, and that's where we will see the action. Possibly from the two out front to just test each other, see who is capable of winning this stage, and also from this group of rest of the favourites. And as long as the Bahrain riders can keep on setting this pace, those guys are going to be happy for the moment until we get into the real steeper section.
The face of Egan Bernal is racked full of determination by the looks of things. You can hear the fans at the side of the road just screaming appreciation and encouragement, which is great to see. About 3/4 of a bike length holding between them just for the time being. The camera just panning back. Always worry when a rider disappears out of the back of a camera frame here. Just remember, those of you who are watching today, the efforts of Remy Rojas and Guillaume Martin, because in all likelihood Guillaume Martin will be not a primary feature at the end of today when it comes to the accounting of when you look at the results, I should say. Bald results really do not speak of the efforts that have been put in, and it's been quite a story for Cofidis as well, of course, of Intermarché Wanty. And sometimes, Sean, bare results don't tell the story of the day, and Remy Rojas and Guillaume Martin have ridden brilliantly, and all credit to them.
Yes, well, Remy Rojas has ridden brilliantly. Guillaume Martin may be a little bit disappointing to see him losing contact with this group of riders in the very earlier part of this climb, but it will be an interesting one to see how much he can limit the losses, and he could be very much still in the reckoning in the overall standings if he can do that. And sometimes we see riders getting into difficulty in the very earlier part of a climb, but they just get into that rhythm, they keep on working working on it, and at the end, they're not that far down, and it will depend as well in this group that has been pulled along by the Bahrain riders. The riders that go on the attack, what point will they be able to do that? Is there anybody feeling good enough that they can go for quite a long ways out?
Here we go. That is a gap. Now, we saw one the other way round earlier on today, a suspected one anyway, and this is Primož Roglic just TTing away from Haig and Bernal. Now, can he hold on to his coattails? He went very deep for much of the day, and all of a sudden Haig and Bernal finds himself looking at an ever-increasing gap, and Primož Roglic loves to impose himself, and this is one of those moments potentially, Sean. How big will this gap be? We said we were worried about the camera frame, and when you have 3/4 of bike length, it suddenly doubles, and then it trebles, and then it just gets exponentially worse. How much has Haig and Bernal spent, and has he got anything left in the bank, Sean?
Well, I think he has quite a bit left in the bank, but you also have to remember if the rider you're with is just making that pace a little bit too strong for you, you might have to knock it off a bit and just go at your own rhythm, because if you go into the red at a point, well, then you're going to totally blow, and with over 7 kilometres to go, that's what you have. You've got to make that calculation. With Bernal, it looks like that he is starting to feel it a bit, and Roglic, we can see there, he's just powering away, sitting in the saddle. That's what he can do so well, and it will be interesting to see now over the next kilometre to see what Roglic can do. Will he pull out more and more advantage? Yes, that's what he's doing.
Absolutely, and this is the steepest part. He's got on the attack just before we reached it, and all of a sudden the inclines are underscoring his greatness. Fantastic. Roglic throwing a slight pale of visage, but it's the predator within him at the moment, and away he goes out of the saddle for the first time in a while, and he'll plonk back down in it, you can be certain, but he wants to drive, and this is a stake into the heart of his opponent.
Yes, well, we can see there he's on the getting onto the steep section, maybe not the steepest section, but yeah, he's out of the saddle, and you can see Bernal is just slipping further back here, and yeah, the question you asked, Carlton, who was going to be the best, now we're seeing it, and it was always a difficult one, but I think from past performance in this race, a recent performance, let's call it, in the last 10 days of the race, Roglic was the one. Bernal has upped his game a lot considering where he was in the first week of the race, but still Roglic is the one who is dominating at the moment.
He certainly is. Now this is going to give some cold comfort for these guys further back down, and you kind of wonder whether they will almost think, well, Roglic is one thing, but Haig and Bernal is another, and there's a couple of guys down here who've been threatened by Bernal, and they'll want to impose their own will upon the remainder of today. And we have 6.7 kilometres before we get to the top. That's Roglic, don't forget. Let's see how it pans out here. Adam Yates will be made perfectly aware of what's happening to Bernal, and he's even lost within the cameras here, as you can see within the crowd, I should say. The flaring headlights of the motorcycles in this inclement weather, heavy of cloud, but a ray of sunshine is shining on Primož Roglic, it seems. The dampness still comes down, but it hasn't spoiled the party for others, and this is exactly what we were saying. There are others here who want to make some noise, and Miguel Angel Lopez, who's looked quite lively during this race, and he's making his own statement now, Sean.
Yes, well, that was to be expected. Some of those guys from Movistar, Miguel Angel Lopez, he has to do something here, because they have been waiting for this climb. They've got a free ride from the team of Bahrain, Victorious, and also from Cofidis, who secured the pace all along in the valley in that 25 kilometres. So, this is the time to try and do something, and that's what they're going to try and, put Lopez up the road, see what the reaction will be for the rest of them. And now it will be an interesting one. If there's somebody else able to put in the attack following Lopez, who will that be? Will we see this group starting to explode? And we're coming to the point as well, where's the real difficult part, and that's where all the ones here in this chasing group will be put to the test.
And that part is coming right now. We've seen cars as well getting called out of the gap between the Breakaway and Bernal. It's because Miguel Angel Lopez has pushed on. Meanwhile, Adam Yates bridges over. This is fantastic. Making the bridge as well, Sepp Kuss. And so we have a trio that are going to sit on the wheel of Miguel Angel Lopez. This is Yates, of course, working on behalf of Egan Bernal. He's not going to give him a turn. And of course, it is Sepp Kuss as well, who is not going to offer up anything because his teammate Primož Roglic is up the road. So is the Cloud, and heading into it, not on cloud 9, you understand. Bernal at 36 seconds. It's a cruel margin, Sean. It's likely to get worse.
Yes, it looks like that is going to get worse. And Roglic, we can see here, the determination. He is really on top of his game here, and when you get an advantage on the likes of Bernal after what he's been doing, he's been riding equally with him on the run into this climb, and now he's proven to be the strongest man in this race. And he's in a real good position because he has the advantage over the rest of the chasing group, and the main men who are close to Mas, Lopez, a long ways down the road here, and he just have to push on now. And the stage, of course, as well. Primož Roglic in this Vuelta, he hasn't won a lot of stages. Well, last year he had picked off a lot of stages in the first week, 10 days. Here he's been lean on stage victories. To win this one on Lagos de Covadonga, and also make his race leadership much more solid, he's going to give it his all in this final 5.9k.
I think it's Gino Mana who's doing a job here for Jack Haig just behind. Great work by the Bahrain victorious boys, but as you can see, I guess our thanks we must extend to Miguel Angel Lopez for making a good fist of this. But Primož Roglic has just flown the coop, and 42 seconds now, 43, the gap's extending as Roglic heats the steepest part of today's test. And indeed a famous one as well, the Lagos de Covadonga. And this man, I'm afraid, he put so much into the day. It was great to see, Sean, and we knew that somebody had to ask the questions of Primož Roglic, but he's got the answers. He's got them on his own as well.
Yes, well, it was great to see that Egan Bernal went in the attack on that penultimate climb of the day, first category, and definitely made our race interesting here, and great for our viewers. And the two big men out in front, just working together, get onto the final climb, and now the man that we were expecting to win this race and to dominate it is really putting a dominating hand on it at the moment. And in this fog here at the moment, it's difficult for Bernal as well because you cannot see the rider up in front of you. At least if it was on a nice clear day you can see him there, but he's disappeared into the clouds.
What an effort being put in here. Gino Mada and Jack Haig trying to rescue their own positions, don't forget, and sensing a weakness in Bernal. If it has to be runners-up spot to somebody like Primož Roglic, then so be it. By the way, Guillaume Martin is sitting at 2 minutes and 37 down, so he's not that far in arrears. And that's a great battle by him and his teammate Remy Rojas, who's looked after him. We'll see how it all accounts by the end. 6 kilometres for those guys, and Primož Roglic suddenly finds himself on one of the famous steps that we've got here. Sean, put a little bit of power back in his legs. It's practically a flat, this one. He'll then come into about 9.5%. And then all of a sudden he'll have a slight plateau and then a descent, bizarrely, one of two that remain to him to ease the last section of it. He's been through the most difficult part, Sean, and he's made it look easy, certainly easier for him than it has been for anybody else. And Bernal is now nearly a minute down.
Yes, well, he's climbing this one impressively, and you can see there the way he's down on the drops. Normally you're sitting on the top of the brake hoods as Bernal is doing here, but he's also onto an easier section. But when you see a rider doing that, well, there is certainly intent there, and he's got a lot to give here, and we can see this gap is growing out to a minute now almost. And Bernal is just going to continue on, give it your all here. And when you're on a mountain like this, if you're really feeling strong, and that gives you just that motivation, it gives you the confidence that you can really dig in, and you're not concerned about the final 5Ks here when you're feeling like Roglic is, and that's what he's putting in a demonstration here.
Roglic has got 2 more ramps to deal with of around about 10%. He's on one of them right now. This goes on for just over a kilometre. He'll have a crest, a little descent, which will take him into a similar margin that will lead him to about a kilometre and a half from home. And that's when he'll know that this day and potentially this race belongs to him. There it is, the group with Mas, Lopez, Haig, Yates and Kuss. It's a selective group. Most certainly all of these guys enhancing their positions, you might say. But poor Egan Bernal finds himself in a lonely place at the moment. He's fighting back. He's holding a margin at less than a minute just for now. But Primož Roglic is absolutely supreme. And this day, and it looks like this Vuelta belongs to him. We suspected it, Sean, but, you know, making statements is one thing, but actually delivering in reality is entirely another. But the reality is that Primož Roglic is the best rider in this race, and today he's certainly showing it.
Yes, well, he is really putting in a dominant ride here, and as we're expecting, some people were saying, well, maybe he might have difficulty going into the third week, but today he's answered all of those questions and really, putting his stamp on this race. And the position was at the beginning of this climb, we were wondering, was Bernal be the one who could really put Roglic under difficulty and maybe take some time from him, but not at all. It's the other way around. And Primož Roglic now, he's really taken control of this race, over a minute in advantage on Bernal. But the other riders, 147 down, Mas, who was at 35 seconds, Lopez at 129. So the advantage he's going to have at the top in the overall standings is going to be a big one.
Mas, he decides that now's the time. Miguel Angel Lopez has had his turn for glory, and this is Mas, and I suspect he may well catch Egan Bernal. Bernal's nearer to this group than he is to Primož Roglic. As you can see, there are the margins writ large for you, and Enric Mas is going for this. Don't be surprised if Adam Yates springs out a little bit later on as well, but you just never know what's left in terms of resources, and I'm afraid that Egan Bernal spent plenty of his in making a big grasp today for glory and to move up into a podium place. But those he would have beaten today, and indeed passed overall, have got lively, Sean, late on, and it looks like it's going to be the undoing of Egan Bernal's stage.
Yes, well, I think the stage is way out of reach for anybody here, and it's Primož Roglic's stage now, and Mas is starting to push on here, but he doesn't look like that. He's pulling out a big advantage, although it's difficult to see how much he is doing. And we can see the Bahrain are still continuing on to set the pace for Jack Haig. It's Mader who is continuing to ride a real strong performance on this climb here now. And Mas had to do something, because we see Lopez already trying, but not really impressive, and was pulled back very quickly. And now it's Mas's turn, but will he be able to ride away from this group of Haig?
Well, you're never that far away from Colombian fans, it seems, and they've bedecked the mountain here with a big flag. But I'm afraid it's Bernal that is flagging as Enric Mas starts to pick up. I think Mas is going to pass Bernal before the line. Meanwhile, Yates it is that picks it up. That's Sepp Kuss that's just charging on onto his back wheel. Jack Haig is here, and Gino Mada's done a fantastic job of nursing him up this mountain. Mada's had his own success in the Giro this year and a few other races as well. He's been superb as the Swiss, but he's in the service of Haig just for the time being. Meanwhile, Mas, it looks like Yates is going to bridge over to him. This is fantastic. Miguel Angel Lopez is getting a bit of a free ride here, just screened by Sepp Kuss, who's sitting on Adam Yates's wheel. And Mas looks over his shoulder. They may all catch Bernal. How cruel is this race? 3 kilometres from home. And on a downhill section now is Primož Roglic, and here we go. It's Sepp Kuss that comes through. How magnificent is this? Well, is he going to make it a 1-2 on the stage? He could do. He's got that kind of fortitude at moments such as this, and then he realises he may well be dragging Mas back into a gap that should indeed stay in place, indeed, if they have their strategy where it needs to be. And so he lets them come through. You do the work. Great little display there by Sepp Kuss as well, showing how much he's got left in the bank. And so the Movistar men will work together. It looks like now at a distance for Mauda and Haig. And this is that downhill section now as well for Bernal, who must wonder what might be. Is he going to be credited with runner-up on the day? I hope so. He's worked so hard for it. The reason we've got lakes up here is writ large upon your screen. It rains a lot in this part of the world. Gone is the sun. But look at that, shining brightly in that gold and black. Primož Roglic heading for red. What a magnificent performance. 2.6 kilometres from home. Minute and 17 between himself and Egan Bernal, who's picked up the pace a little bit more as well. I'm hoping Bernal holds on for runners-up spot and finds a little bit more time overall. He deserves it, Sean, does Bernal, after his effort today. He's just beaten by a better man.
Yes, he certainly does deserve to finish second on the stage, up against a much better man on this final climb in Primož Roglic. But he has a group coming up from behind, and yeah, he's getting into the easier part. Of course, there's a few kick-ups here in this final 3 kilometres, but he has an advantage maybe of a 15, maybe 17 second of advantage for Bernal, back to that chasing group of Lopez, Mas, Yates. But will he be able to hold on? We can see he's starting to struggle more the moment it just starts to kick uphill.
I do fear for him. This is the last climbing section, apart from a gentle kicker to the line, that we still have to deal with. And they're marauding. Good work by Gino Mauda on behalf of Jack Haig. I hope he buys him a big foamy one later on today, if he's allowed. 2.3 kilometres from home. And yeah, they are going to find Bernal on the road, and there it is. It's a cruel sport, this, Sean.
Yes, it is a cruel sport, and you know, when you see what Bernal has done in today's stage, you know, it's a disappointing one to see him after all the work he's put in. You know, he's going to lose it here in just the final 1.5 kilometres. You can see the guys just can't see him out front here, and yeah, if he gets over this one and there's a bit of a looking around, he might just about hold on, but it's going to be a difficult one here. And yeah, that's disappointing, because he's really opened up the race here and yeah, struggled for his efforts on this climb. But what an improvement from Bernal. You know, we have seen him suffer majorly in all the stages of this race. Today, you know, he was a much better performance from him.
And Roglic goes again. He's just dealt with all of the testy ramps of the Lagos de Covadonga, and still Bernal has not given up. It's got to be a combativity award for that man today. He would have liked a lot more from it as well. And if he does maintain this gap to the line, and there's question marks as to whether he will, it could end up being a bit of a sprint here for the last bonus seconds. That may well be coveted. Let us wait and see. 10-second margin he holds just for the time being, but Roglic is just about to hit the downhill run that will be just over a kilometre, in fact, that will take him to the last little kick-up. Nothing serious before he gets to the line. 1,600 metres to go for Roglic. He's nearly done with all the climbing today, Sean. There's plenty more tomorrow, but he will take a great deal of relief, I think, that he's proved himself. Every rider must ask questions at the beginning of a race, and you're the first person as a rider. You need to answer the questions to yourself. Doubt is something that bedevils everybody. Let there be no doubt, Sean. Primož Roglic is in his pomp here.
Yes, well, this is a real dominant performance, and today was the day when we talked about who could win this Vuelta, who would be challenging for the places on the podium. But definitely to win this race, we're seeing Primož Roglic. He's just really put his stamp on the race, and we can see 1:35, you know, back to Bernal, and the rest just a handful of seconds behind here as we see Bernal to be pulled back. And yeah, the fight is still on for the podium. but certainly Primož Roglic really a dominating performance today.
Sepp Kuss is going to go for it. He had to do so. You can imagine that Adam Yates is going to kick on here as well to try and get some bonus seconds if Bernal is going to get caught. In fact, no, Yates not just for the time being. Big pickup here by Sepp Kuss. Wants to make it a 1-2 for Jumbo-Visma, and what a big statement that will be. Last 500 metres for Primož Roglic. He's heading for home, and Sepp Kuss looks like he may well even fancy being in second place today. Let's wait and see. Primož Roglic, last 200 metres, top of the world he is. You can't see down in the valleys, but there's a clarion call that's been issued by this man. He has made a big noise today, and it's echoing down through the valleys and hills around us. Primož Roglic is at his absolute best, and when he is, there's no beating him. He just roars at the sky. That was fabulous. Right, let's see as the cameras switch back. Miguel Angel Lopez it is that just comes through ahead of Sepp Kuss. Takes it a little bit wide on the corner. They're all desperate for bonus seconds. Sepp Kuss is going to sprint him to the line. Adam Yates is going to get involved in this one as well. There's the Flamme Rouge for these guys, and it's Bernal who's watching on a spectator. Where have you guys been all day? And the answer is they have been making inroads into Bernal's spectacular effort that really opened up the day and made us ask questions of Primož Roglic, but he had all the answers. Who's going to finish in second place? That's the one that is remaining right now. And where will Guillaume Martin finish as well? He's further down the mountain. We don't know what his gap is just for the time being. Riding this one in, Sean, but what a dramatic day we've had.
Yes, well, what a battle has been, on this final climb, and we can see, this run to the line, the downhill section, very, very treacherous. You can see the riders, the way they're trying to stay in position and not lose anything, as we can see. Lopez is leading in here to the line, and he should be able to hold on to second place.
Should be. 150 minutes, and Adam Yates comes up and over the top, and Kuss is going to race it for him. 3 wide. They come into this corner. There's not much space, and Kuss wants this. Oh, they will be Kussing behind him as well. This is fantastic. Oh, wow. You wanted a statement from Jumbo-Visma. You've got it right now. 1 and 2 on the stage. Lopez, Adam Yates comes across the line. Looked like Haig as well. Matter just at the back of this group and offers up a hand of sympathy to the back here of Egan Bernal. What a fabulous day, and now we wait to see the gap back to the likes of Grosjean and Meintjes. David de la Cruz with Guillaume Martin still on this mountain. Some huge gaps, but the one that mattered most was the one set by Primož Roglic. He has been absolutely magnificent today, and so has his team, Jumbo-Visma, making it a 1-2, but more importantly, they have grasped control of the race. And it's the man with his hand on the tiller. You know his name. Primož Roglic.
Que ha lucido el mayor de líderes de la clasificación general con Christian Eikin. A partir de ahora el goteo de Corro de que van a finalizar en la etapa de hoy. Ahí vamos viendo también a Clement Chapouzin.
And here we go, they're wrestling it to Clement Chapouzin. It is that comes to the line. Still waiting. Grosjean, a great effort by him considering he had a crash, and Bernal, it's almost a metaphor for the day, isn't it? He has a lonely figure as he rides himself back off the twists and turns that introduced us to the line here. What a performance, Sean.
Yes, what a dominant performance here, and we could see there 1:36 at the finish line on the rest of the chasers there, Bernal just struggling in that final number of kilometres and not getting anything out of the day against the other challengers for the places on the podium. And this man, as we talked about, always looking like he was in control, but today he's really proved that without any doubt at all.
Well, this is Jan Hertz. I don't know if Louis Meintjes, I've missed him coming across the line. There we are. Meintjes finishing in 9th place. So 4 hours 34 minutes and 45 seconds, and the clock is ticking. Well, I'm afraid it's ticking against Guillaume Martin. We'll wait for him, Sean. A gutsy performance by Martin, and of course from Odd Christian Eiking. But you said this day would be an accounting of those who were in the lead and a re-establishment of a pecking order. It had to be a big day to do it, and today we've had one.
Yes, we've had one, and yes, we see Eiking in difficulty as we see the results of the stage there. Kuss getting it, second place, and taking that bonus was still available for the second place on the line. But yet, Guillaume Martin, he's been battling a number of times in this race, trying to get the red jersey. But unfortunately, today he was in difficulty earlier on, and as we can see, finishing here, but it's going to be 4:45:46 down.
Well, good for him, and also for Remy Rojas. And as I say, you look at bold results and you kind of forget the battles that have raged down the mountain, Sean, and we need to remember all of those who've entertained us today. Floris de Tier just coming across the line after a strong performance as well. It's been a magnificent day of racing.
Yes, it's been a real interesting day, and great racing right from the start. We see the way it was aggressive racing to get into the breakaway, and Ineos Grenadiers opening it up on the first time up that first category climb, and then doing exactly the same the second time up the climb, and Bernal just kicking off a long ways out, and we're wondering will everybody wait to the final climb here to Lagos, but not at all. Bernal taking it up from a long way out, but just suffering in the end, running out of power, and Primož Roglic, he just in a place now where it's very difficult to see who can really challenge him to win this race outright.
Let us see. All credit where it's due to Remy Rojas for going back for Guillaume Martin. Super work, that. We know what we already knew, Sean. Primož Roglic is a spectacular rider, and today he produced a spectacular performance.
Well, yes, we know now, but starting out this morning, there was always the question, would Primož Roglic be able to, continue on the way he's performing in this race into the third week? We've seen it in the past where he can weak, and were the other ones getting better as the race went on, notably Bernal, notably Yates, Mas, Lopez, all of those guys. So there was that little bit of a question mark in my mind, but there isn't any question now. Roglic has proved that he is the man to beat in this race.
Louis Meintjes coming home in at 9th place today, ahead of Chapouzin, Kruijswijk, Großhartner, De La Cruz, Jan Hurt, Guillaume Martin finishing in 15th place. And just look at the faces of those who took on the day. This was a mighty challenge, Sean, and we've got another one tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow's another real big day, and it's going to be an interesting one. The fight now for the places on the podium, that is going to continue on, and tomorrow is another opportunity for those riders to try something and battle between them to get onto the podium of this Vuelta.
This is how they came home. Egan Bernal, who animated the day, asked the big question that Roglic had the answer to. Best of all, and now back in red. Roglic, Kuss, Lopez, Yates, Haig is how they came home. The top five ahead of Mas and Bernal. What a great day of racing, and another one to come tomorrow. I'm exhausted, Sean. There's your bonifications factored in as well. Kuss just making sure that Miguel Angel Lopez didn't take the 6. He grabbed those, so he had some battling to do. Sean, your last thoughts?
Well, again, this rider, he gets knocked down as he did in the Tour of France. Then he comes back and he puts in those, monstrous rides, and today was a monstrous performance, and now he's in line to win his third Vuelta, and looking very difficult to see anybody challenging from here on.
What a spectacular day it turned out to be. Thanks to Sean and Dan Lloyd for their company today. Let's hear from Bernie and Alberto.
Primož Roglic takes the third stage win in this Vuelta a España. Impressive performance by him. But my question is, why didn't he stay in the peloton and just let Bernal do the work, go and attack, and just looks what the other guys are doing? He went straight with him and even helped him.
Sí, creo que tercera victoria y victoria realmente importante.
Well, yes, I think it's his third victory, and a great statement by Roglic. Great performance.
De ganar en Santiago.
He's showing that he's so strong and showing that he can win in all terrain. It's a risky option. He had Haig and Bernal on his back, and congratulations to him, because he showed to Roglic, that is, he showed he's the strongest, and he has the Vuelta lead.
His lead, but at the same time, you think it's already. Do we see already the Vuelta winner of this year's Vuelta a España? Is it Primož Roglic already, or is it still a long way?
Mañana tenemos una etapa más
well,
dura,
tomorrow we have an even tougher stage than this one. We'll analyse that, of course, but if you're in a crisis, you can lose it all. But since he's so strong, I just can't see it, he says.
It is definitely not over yet. Tomorrow's a complicated one, a hard one. But back to the commentators now and see what else GC for. Oh, this GC standings are. Sorry for that.
Well, let's have a look at how it stacks up overall. Primož Roglic leads this race. What's the margin? 2 minutes and 22. Let's get confirmation of that for you. With bonuses factored in, that's a handsome margin. Enric Mas nearest to him, Miguel Angel Lopez, Movistar, how will they stop him? Ineos Grenadiers tried today with Haig and Bernal, and it didn't work out. What can Team Bahrain Victorious do? They tried today, but just couldn't match the man himself, who's in red, Primož Roglic. Sepp Kuss finishing second today, nabbing some bonus seconds, and indeed we are going to have a chat with him. What a performance, what a team performance, and what an individual performance it was, not only by Roglic but by Kuss himself. Here he comes.
So Sepp Kuss is here with us. Sepp, man, what a ride with your team, with Roglic and yourself, man.
Yeah, it was a really impressive day by everyone in the race. Actually, it was full on all day, and yeah, the guys rode super well. And Primož went with Bernal. It was already a really hard pace, and when he went, it was just blown apart. And yeah, it's a brave move to go that far out, but yeah, I could tell he really wanted to do something today, and yeah, he did it in an even more impressive way.
Was there ever any doubt that it was maybe too early for Primož to go with Bernal there?
I don't think so. Already on the descent, the teams that were chasing weren't descending so fast, and the gap was really going out. And in the valley, there were a lot of teams coming together to chase, but yeah, I think those two guys in front, also Bernal, hats off to him. It's a nice ride as well.
With you guys coming in first and second, did you just kill the Vuelta for this year?
No, not yet. I think tomorrow is another crazy hard climb, and still anything can happen, but I think everyone will be tired after today.
Sepp Kuss, despite all the exertions, still smiling, and why shouldn't he? Spearing up through the centre here. Adam Yates looked like he was enjoying the battle here. Sepp Kuss coming through, Miguel Angel Lopez getting the last of the bonus seconds on the day, but Kuss making sure that he didn't take 6. Back to Bernie and Alberto to gather their thoughts on what's to come tomorrow. And in fact, it's their thoughts on Haig and Bernal's performance today.
Haig and Bernal, I have to tell you, hats off to him and the team. They tried. I mean, it was kind of poker game, all in. You have to try, and he did.
Sí, yo creo que únicamente lo que hay que hacer es
Yeah,
felicitarle.
agreed.
Gracias a él hemos
I think we need to congratulate him.
espectacular.
We had an amazing stage because of him,
Pero
and it's a shame because he didn't get any reward out of it.
Tienes que ir todo o nada. Él pues ha apostado, no
But he had to think about how the race went. He didn't get the prize that he wanted, but he will have another opportunity tomorrow,
El resto de corredores han pagado quizá
because the rest of the
el
riders
frío y quizá
also
a él
paid
antes
a prize
por algo.
today.
No sabemos si la alimentación o el qué, pero bueno, ha salvado
And you
el
never
día,
know.
llegando al mismo tiempo que el resto de
Maybe it was a bit too long today for Haig and Bernal, but
Is Haig and Bernal
he looked good.
missing something? A really long season coming from the Giro. He's still working on his comeback after his hard crash.
Creo que habría que hacer un análisis y obviamente solo van a saber ellos, pero creo que
I think we need to analyse this, of course, but I think there's another important point.
él pasó el COVID, justo
The
después
COVID.
del Tour de
He
Francia.
caught COVID, don't forget, just after the Tour de France, and many riders have had a much longer recovery period than him, so others have suffered, and he's survived it very well. He's come back. A lot of riders that don't achieve their best shape after that, but maybe he wasn't the best shape at the beginning, but he's been improving.
Vuelta finishes on Sunday. But back to you guys, the commentators now in the studios.
Thank you. It's a good point that Alberto makes. Coming back from COVID and producing a performance like that, chapeau to Bernal for doing a great job today. Well, all bar the leader's jerseys stay the same, but red goes onto the shoulders of Roglic. What a punishing day. We knew it would be. Destination Lago de Covadonga. The mountains.